This meeting of the trustees of the Lamesa Independent School District is now in order. It is 6 p.m. on February 15, 2024. A quorum is present with all board members except Ernest Ojeda. This meeting has been duly called, and the notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meeting Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Mr. Hughes, would you lead us in prayer, please?
Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for this beautiful day and just all the great things that you have made and given us. And Lord, we do thank you for allowing us to make it another year and just to serve you. I would just lift up each and every person here, Lord, that you would just guide and direct them and in their thoughts and in their decisions and all that they're doing for us. We're just so fortunate to live in a country where we can come together and meet, govern ourselves, and not be persecuted for our beliefs. And we just thank you for that. Lord, we just also thank you for your Son, Jesus, who died for us. Amen.
Amen.
No, ma'am.
Okay, I guess we'll do the public hearing.
Yes, ma'am. Let me get it. We're ready to run. Ms. Bauman, you ready?
Yes, I am.
Ms. Bauman and I are going to tag team this. There's going to be a lot of slides she talks on, and sometimes I'm going to jump in because this is kind of the academic state. You know, instead of the union address that you see on TV, this is the academic state address. Now, we talked a lot about accountability earlier in the year and how there's a lawsuit from a lot of school districts against TEA. So they did not assign any accountability. So you're not going to see any ratings because they don't exist. What you're going to see is our kids' results. Okay? And what we tried to do is make it really easy to read. And so as we go through it, you'll see our results broken down by our subpopulations for every STAR test. And then on the slide after each one, you'll see how we did as a whole compared to last year. And the biggest thing that I want you to pay attention to on that slide is the meat side. Because we're in academically, financially, culturally, we have always, in Lamesa, in my opinion, we've always gone to a point wanting to do things different, in my opinion, better. And then when it gets hard, because change is hard, we back off. And that's where we are right now. We're right at that hard part. And adult behavior is hard to change. And to get change for our kids, we got to change the adult behavior. And that is what, when you look at today, and this is what I keep telling Ms. Bauman, we've got to quit looking at it like, let's fix this thing and that thing and that thing. We're looking at it like a complete overhaul. And one of the overhauls is, in Lamesa, we've always wanted to get our kids to approaches. It's always been our goal. And our goal moving forward is to get our kids to meets. And getting the kids to meets will get more kids up to approaches, if that makes sense. And so when I jump in, it's going to be to kind of talk about things we are doing, and Ms. Bauman will as well, things we are in the process of implementing that I think is going to completely change the academic landscape here in Lamesa. Because I think we are on the precipice of that. But it's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be comfortable. And if we decide it's too uncomfortable, we can always go back to what we've always done, but don't get mad in 5 years when the results are exactly what they've always been. Our goal is to give our kids the best chance at success, and that's the plan we're pushing towards. So with that...
And there's a whole lot at the beginning that just legally has to be here, so I'll go through those pretty fast. So this is our TAPER report, and it's part of the Texas Performance Reporting Standards, and you can see all of this on the TEA website. Like Richie said, there are no ratings this year, so normally we would talk about the ratings, but they put this slide in saying there aren't any.
We did have a Zoom today. They will be next year. And he talked about the lawsuit. He said assuming the lawsuit goes away next year, the A through F ratings will, on the exact same scale that it would have been this year, we will get that report next year.
after we have this, because you have to have your public meeting, your public hearing first, and then we will have the PDF of the taper report posted. It'll be on the website. It'll be at campuses, or there's you can go to the TEA website and find it. So there's, if you want to go, here's the pictures, and that's, you just kind of go through. But the taper report in general goes over a couple of different things. The first part, the main part of it, is our STAR performance. So we'll look at our performance by grade level, by subject, by subpopulation, and then we're going to look at it compared to last year. The taper report usually carries 2 years' worth of academic data on it. Then it goes down and it'll talk about our participation rates in different sub-pops and special programs, our attendance rate, our dropout rates, our graduation rates. We'll look at our CCMR indicators and what that entails and how our students are doing with that. So that's our TSI results, our ACT, and our college prep classes. And then we'll look at our student information, the demographics. We'll also look at our teacher information and our staff information. And then we'll look at our programs. One of the things that it does that I didn't know it did, I think we talked about this last year, it's going to monitor, there's a place where we monitor our graduates. So we're going to look at what our 2020 graduates have done post-secondary. And then the last thing is a link to the PEAMS financial report, but that is for the 21-22 school year because they haven't released last year's.
So you said, what didn't they release last year?
They haven't released the financial reports yet. It's later in the spring. Okay. I think they said like March-ish, so it'll be there. Okay. So starting, this is where we're going to look at our STAR performance. We're going to start with reading, so we'll go grade by grade, and it'll look at the sub-pops. You'll notice sometimes there's empty bars. That doesn't mean that they did bad. That means we didn't have enough students there to populate information. And so grade level to grade level, you're going to see differences in that, because as the cohorts go through, you'll see that changing. One of the biggest ones we see changes in is our ELL, because not only are they changing grade levels, they exit the program as well. So you're going to see there's one grade level where they're doing awesome, and so next year that's probably going to change because those kids will exit out. So just be careful when you're looking at it like that, because it can get confusing and all the bars kind of run together.
And before we start going any further, let me say that we wanted to give y'all a ton of information. So there's 87 slides on this bad boy. All right. And so what I would ask you, and that's also the reason our principals are here, because I wanted this to be an academic-minded board meeting. So like on this STAR stuff, you're going to have questions. I would say let us get through a lot of this, and then we'll let you ask questions, because they're going to pertain to the same thing a lot. Okay, go ahead.
So what you'll see on the left side, you have your approaches. On the right side, you have your meets. The first dark bar is LaMesa, like as a whole, and then these are our breakdowns. So this is where we were in third grade reading, approaches and meets. This slide that will come after each one probably makes more sense to me when I'm looking at it. This is comparing how we were in 22 to 23. So you can see in third grade we went down a little bit in approaches last year, but you can see we went down quite a bit in meets. And there's going to be a big difference between our approaches and our meets at just about every level.
And I also think it's hard to kind of think about it the right way sometimes, but you got to remember this group of kids is different than this group of kids. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Because sometimes we start thinking, well, how did those kids go down? It's a different group of kids each time. Okay, go ahead.
And also keep in mind it was a different type of test.
First time they had done the STAR test re-release.
The short constructed responses, the extended constructed responses, and you'll see a big difference in that in reading, especially at the lower level where we weren't as prepared for that. I will say, just kind of to preface what we're looking at this year, we're very fortunate. Michelle O'Allen at high school was a rater for TEA for the STAR test over the summer. And so she has trained our teachers, our ER teachers third and up, on the rubric, how to do it and what they're looking for. And that's made a huge difference. So here is third grade reading. Here's fourth grade reading. And you'll see right there the huge difference between approaches and meets. And then, like that ELL group, you'll see right there. And so we look for that to fall off in the years to come because they will exit. Here's overall. So our approaches went up a little bit, but our meets went down a little bit. And one of the things we've talked about with that one of our remedies is getting our aligned curriculum and resources. Because when everybody was going and picking what they wanted, it wasn't at the meets rigor. And so we were really targeting approaches instead of the meets. And so that's why you see a lot of the fluctuation there. Here's fifth reading. So you'll see, we've got some empty bars there because there's nobody in that cohort, but there's our approaches and our meets. And then here's what we did from year to year. So our approaches is getting better, but our meets is what we want to move. Going into sixth grade, and with this group right here, the entire first semester last year, they were taught remotely online through the Elevate program. So we did not have an in-person teacher with them until semester. That ELL group, that tall blue bar at the end, has maintained 100% of approaches for the last 2 years. So they will be exiting the program soon. And you can see, well, it might be easier to see on this one. We're starting to make gains. You're going to see middle school had a lot of gains last year in approaches and then in the meets. So there we went from 22 to 23 in both areas. Here's seventh grade reading. There's a big discrepancy on that one between meets and approaches, and so that's something we've really worked on this year, is targeting that grade level. One of the things that we were fortunate enough this year, our ELR department at middle school had all 3 teachers return in the same spot. So we're getting some consistency going. They went down a little bit last year. I believe the year before, I believe last year was the first year that teacher did all of that when it was split teachers before. So getting that consistency is going to help. Here's our 8th grade. Our 8th grade across the board, you'll see in every subject, did amazing. They had huge growth. Once again, there's that ELL group that's high, but our approaches and our meets, and here's their growth. They had great meets growth in 8th grade reading. And they had 3 teachers last year.
That's what I was going to say.
So they started off with 1, we went to another, and then they had a 3rd one. The last one they ended with is still there this year. And we're already seeing some promising things come through there. Looking at English 1, there's our approaches and our meets. And then here's our growth. And to me, if y'all want me to go back to the sub-pops, I'll spend more time on those. But this one is the growth, the overall growth is what speaks more to me about our systems. So we had quite a bit of growth. And on English 1, they had 3 teachers last year. And the one that came in semester, Miss Llewellyn, has stayed there consistently, and she's back this year as well. So we're seeing good things there as well. And then here's English 2, and you will see that they had growth as well. All in all, our ELAR, one of the biggest things that we've talked about is what the writing part of the test did and how we were combating that. So we've got some good plans in place, some good strategies that we're doing with our students, and lots of practice across content levels.
And this will be a good way to ask questions because we've pretty much gone through all the reading, so we can ask questions after reading, after math, and that'll break it up a little bit. She spoke, and I taught you a whole lot, and I think it'll make more sense now that you're seeing it. In Lamesa, it's always been pick whatever you want to teach. And if I was teaching a curriculum and I just didn't like it, I just would shelve it, and I would get online and I would Google something, and then I would teach it. And that's one of the things we got away from, and it's one of those uncomfortable things because it's harder for our teachers. But it is a researched curriculum that is proven to get results. And so that, I think, is going to pay great dividends, not just this year, but in continuing years, that now they are on a researched, state-approved curriculum. All of them. And they're doing it every single day. And it's uncomfortable for them, but we're going to push through it because it's what's best for our kids.
One of the things we've talked a lot about is, as teachers, naturally we want to be helpers and we want to, nurture. And so it's our natural instinct to, what we say, pitch it where they can hit it. And so what we've been doing is bringing everything down to where they can be successful. So what we've created is this gap. And you'll see it after a while when we look at where Lamesa is compared to the region and the state. And so, it's out of the goodness of everybody's heart, but it's not, and honestly,
it's not good for our kids. We're playing T-ball instead of baseball, and we're changing the game.
Ride back.
The only way to grow is to push our kids, and the only way to push the kids is to push the adults, if that makes sense.
Do you have any questions over the RLA part? Okay. We'll come back if we need to. And going through math, you'll see once again. And our 3rd grade always kind of starts off low. It's their first year doing it and getting into it. And one of the things we've talked about as well is South. We have not done as good of a job preparing our kids to get ready for that as we could have. And so we've already put some things in place for that this year. But here's our third grade math, and then here's how we did. So we went down a little bit last year. We had some big gaps with the math curriculum we were using at North last year, and everybody was kind of doing various things. So we looked.
And as she said, they got no help from South. And it wasn't South's fault. They've never been asked to really prepare kids for what's coming in third grade, which another expectation has been changed.
Here's fourth grade math. And it might be easier to look at that. We've got growth. We had good meets growth last year. Fifth grade math, there's a big discrepancy between our meets and our approaches. So that's something our sixth grade math teacher is now looking at as she's working, because she has this group of kids. So our approaches in fifth grade did great, but our meets went down. And that's part of we're focusing on the approaches because the state counts that and you get credit for it, but it's not really. One of the things we talked about in the PLC today, for science, I know approaches really means you only know 20-something% of the grade level content. So that's not really where we want to be, but that's where we've kind of been designed to look at. Here's sixth grade math, and so that also has a big discrepancy. We have a new math teacher and a new curriculum in math, but even with that discrepancy, we still showed growth. Math is what we saw the biggest dip in after we came back from COVID.
Across the state, not just in East.
Seventh grade math. And here's the growth. And I will say seventh grade math has the same teacher last year. He's got more experience underneath him, and I've been very impressed with what I've seen in his class. Our eighth grade, just like with reading, you're going to see made great growth. And I don't think that's any surprise. And they went up in both areas, approaches and meets. So what we've talked about on the high school level is these kids came in showing this much growth. We cannot let them go back down. And this is something that, with the accelerated math that we're fixing to have to start putting into middle school, we've already started talking with this teacher about the ways that would be best to do that, because he knows middle school math really well, and how we can best get that snuck in starting next year. Here's our Algebra 1. The meets was pretty low on that one, and it had gone down while our approaches went up. I think we've had a different Algebra 1 teacher almost every year for a while. And so getting that consistency is going to be key. The math program that we are using this year that we've adopted is aligned starting in sixth grade all the way up through high school, where we had a break in that in the past. And so we're working to help that continue across. The CICs, by being content-based instead of campus-based, has helped with that alignment as well. Science, we don't have as much science because they're only tested 5th, 8th in biology, but it has historically been a hard area for us. So here was our 5th grade science. Did I do the right button? Yep. And so our approaches went up, but our meets went down a little bit. Katrina Sellers is working with our science. We didn't have a science person at all last year. We had the service center coming in and helping. So having somebody in-house that has been a great help. Our 8th grade, just like with reading and math, you're going to see a big growth. There is a big difference between meets and masters, but you'll see that it's better than we're getting better than we were. 8th grade science has been. They both
went up.
And then biology. Here's our meets and our approaches. And then we had our approaches, we grew a little bit, but our meets, we went down a little bit. Katrina's working a lot with our biology and making sure we're getting the hands-on, we're getting the things that we need to help with that. Social studies, you only have 8th grade in U.S. history, and 8th grade has been rough historically. We went from that was one of the easiest ones to pass back in the day because you only had to memorize, to now it took a huge jump when it switched, and they switched standards. But we're making growth, and we have the same teacher back this year, and she's doing some great things. And then in U.S. history, who also had 2 teachers throughout the year last year, also showed growth from the year before. So the next thing we'll look at, and this is...
Go ahead. Go right ahead.
I just breathed.
And then I want to stop y'all so y'all can ask, because it's going to flip from academics to some other stuff. So, you heard Bauman say a lot of times we had different teachers, and then all of a sudden she would say we had the same teacher, and you would see that there's definitely different results with continuity. And that is really one of our main focuses, is to start making this a place, and I think we're on the right track, that people want to stick around in. Because the longer they stay, the better they get.
The next couple of slides, and this is something we've talked a lot about in our CIC meetings, is looking at Lamesa compared to the region compared to the state. And I think you'll see that there is a big gap, especially in meets. And so we were talking the other day, we were setting goals, and we're like, there is absolutely no reason that Lamesa can't do the same as everybody else in our region. It's not like we're out in the middle of nowhere, nobody can do it out here. Kids around us can. It's what we're doing as the adults to help prepare them for that. So this here shows all grade levels, all subjects, all squished into one. So our approaches were below the region and the state, and then our meets is too. When you go and look, this is all grade levels of ELAR, and that's where you'll see that gap is starting to come in at the meets level. And this is kind of a squirrel, but I always just assumed, we're West Texas, we live out in the middle of nowhere, we weren't keeping up as a region, and our region actually is one of the highest regions in the state. And we've got the stuff around us to help make it happen. It's just us making
We've
sure
never
we're
asked the
pushing
kids
it.
to do it, if that makes sense.
So here's math. You can see the approaches in the meets. Science. We're getting a little closer. And then we like this one. Social studies is right. It's really closing in, but it's only 2 tests. So we're able to hone in a little bit more. Any question on those? Because we're fixing to switch to growth. So when we're looking at growth, when we talk accountability, when the accountability system comes back and all that good stuff, domain 3 is where this really hits, and they only look at reading and math, and it focuses on meets. So this is going to talk about kids that met that growth of expected or accelerated growth. What percentage of our kids actually did that, and it's only going to look at reading and math. So this is our whole goal, all of our kids. So about 50% of our kids in 4th grade met their reading growth, and then a little less than 60 in math. And then here's 5th grade reading and math, who met growth. And you can see we've got, just like with the others, some of those sub-pops don't have students in that. 6th grade reading and math. 7th grade. And then there's our 8th grade where we had such, high growth. That math, it's just, it makes me happy. Keep going. English 1, or English 2 and Algebra 1, they don't have English 1 on here because they don't really look at 8th grade to English 1, but they did for Algebra. I don't know why. They did English 1 to English 2 when they pulled growth instead. So we've got our kids at high school. It's like as we go up in grade levels, our kids are progressing. It's just our foundation we need to solidify. If you take all grade levels for both subjects and put it all together, we had 60% of our kids meet growth across the board. We would like to see that definitely go up. Just in reading, it was a little below 60. And then in math, it was a little above, but we're hovering right there. That is pretty much the end of STAR performance and academic information. So what questions do y'all have on that?
More on this.
Real quick, before we move on. So when you don't have a sub-pop or a category in one of those charts you're talking, I know it's broke down by your race.
Where it doesn't have one. Okay, like that one right there.
So could the Algebra 1 has no, I guess, African American and no white, right? On Algebra 1?
Yes.
Not enough to count.
So it can either mean there's not enough to count,
Right.
or there's right at enough, and if they released it because of the number, you would know who it is and it would break FERPA.
Right. So could they be also categorized in another category and they would put them in the race? I mean, like, could a white kid be an ESL or an ELL or special ed, and
They would
go at
pull
once.
them into that one too.
Multiple.
So you would not show. Okay, they can go multiple.
No, they can.
Okay.
So, you know, if we have a dyslexic or a special education student that's, let's say on this one that we're looking at, a white special education student, they are counted and shown in the special education bar. If we had a white, they would be shown in both.
Oh, okay.
One of the things
that's what I want to know.
one of the things we have talked about is we have students that, and I don't want to say hit us, but get, you know, counted as those areas. So your special education, your dyslexia, your one of the things they track now from year to year is what two ethnicities were your lowest performing, and they're going to track those and see if those start to change and you start closing the gap. Any other on that one? This we're going to get into just kind of, it'll be attendance, graduation rates, and all that. One of the things we notice is that our attendance as a district is below the state and region, and usually we're a little closer than that, but even that we're above 90%.
This year we're sitting right around 93% on the current year, district-wide.
This is dropout rates for 7th and 8th graders. We don't have any, so that's good. This is dropout rates in general for high school, and you'll see that as a district, we're way down here. The state's over 2%. These are the percentages of our district. So when you're looking at the ones that comprise our point whatever, it's, you know, the majority of that is our African American, then our Hispanic, and our SPED, and our ECODIS. But overall, if you compare to the region and the state, we have a much better dropout rate, which leads into our graduation rate. So you can have graduation, and then they look at if you're a continuer, if you got your GED, or you dropped out. So the next, like, 5 charts are going to show the exact same thing from year to year. Sometimes it'll have what they call the exceptions on it, and sometimes it won't. So here we are. We have a little over 98% graduation rate. Usually we have continuers or GEDs. We do, I think, like there would be like a 0.5% up there. We'll see in a minute. If you took that out, this is the same thing. They just took the top of the bars off. These are just ones that graduated. What it does is it goes back and it'll do a 4, 5, and 6 year range, and then on accountability they'll take the highest of the 3, but it'll start to drop off as the time goes on. So this was our 5 year, and then here's our 6 year. So this group will be gone next year, and they'll just do the 21, 22, and 23.
I have a question on the dropout rate.
Yes, ma'am.
When a student drops out, do y'all ever call parents in or ask
We do home
why?
visits. Oh,
Home visit, maybe
absolutely.
see if there's something we could do to help them get back into it. Something like a lot of these kids are helping pay bills, so they're just like, I might as well go to work, and they're not going to school. Like, are we giving them every opportunity?
And I think that's why our district has a lower dropout rate than the region and the state, because we've done such a good job of tracking them down.
Okay.
Come back in. We've got Success Academy you can go through. We've got other options to
we
get
run
them
into
back
them
in.
at the grocery store. We invite them back to school. I mean, we
Yes.
do anything and everything to keep these kids with us.
Right. Okay.
Then looking at and this is the class of 22, so it's 2 years ago, looking through CCMR. So this is our percentage of students that were considered college ready. That means they're meeting their TSI, and they're doing a college prep course, they're doing dual credits, anything like that. So we had a little over 70% that were considered college ready. And this is something that we have looked at quite a bit lately on how to increase that, getting our TSI compliance more in order. We've got some things that we're working on with that. Talking about moving some of that, having on test earlier, because a good chunk of TSI is your 8th grade math. So by the time they take it when they're juniors and seniors, sometimes it's not as fresh on their mind. So we've got some refresher courses that we've got, and some different options that we're looking at for that. Career and military graduates. So this is if they're, showing they've got their certification or anything else that shows that they're career military. We're still having a hard time getting data on, because they don't like to share all their stuff because of privacy, but they're working on that. The state's fighting them on that one. We don't have to. This is, I think, probably the biggest thing that we've looked at with our CTE offerings and how to get this more, because we have so many opportunities that we could be taking advantage of, and we want to really up that. The career, when we think about our special education kids, there's a pathway they could go that would be so, beneficial for them, that would also help with this as well.
That we once did, if I remember right.
We used to have a program called BAC, and it was a work program for our special ed students. We lost that a few years ago.
We're about to bring it back.
We're getting it back.
Do we just lose it because of
We just like a
grant,
lot
or
of things, just
just
Not
stop
say
doing
no.
it?
yes,
Okay.
lost has been
Back up
found.
for it.
Yes.
It's a gentle way. We didn't have any kids that took the SAT. We only had ACT. This is what they call the class of 2022, but that's just the year they did it, because the kids can take it at different times during their high school years. Our average was a 19.5, and then our two breakdowns that they were giving the data on, we had an 18.5 for Hispanic and 19.6 for our ECODIS. When we talk about our TSI prep, we're also looking at some ACT stuff to help out with that as well. There's a program that we use that is specifically geared towards this, to help them get that up. Here is just our breakdown, our demographics. The state is on the right, Lamesa is on the left, and how we compare in the different areas. So this is our student breakdown. Oh, wait, just kidding, teacher isn't yet. Then this is also how they're categorized into some of our subpops. So our ECODIS, we're at a 79.7, where the state is a 62.
And that's actually today 81.7.
Our ELLs, we have a lot less than the state percentage-wise, but that is growing daily. We've had a big influx, which, I mean, honestly is pretty cool, because the things they're bringing and sharing is, I think, beneficial for all of our kids. Our disciplinary placements, we are higher than the state. This is something we met on the other day we're getting better with. This is from the 21-22 school year. And then our at-risk, we have 57.4, where the state has 53.3. And that has to follow those certain categories on what would I think there's 13 at-risk indicators. Here's our teacher breakdown by ethnicity and state compared to Lamesa. And then this is probably one of the biggest ones to me, is our teacher years of experience. Lamesa has 52%, 5 years or less. The state has about 35%, 5 years or less. And it really does play a role in teachers knowing how to monitor and adjust and change what they're doing for the kids. And so that's why we're bringing up who's been consistent, because if we can get that going and they do the same thing, it's their bag of tricks, whatever you want to call it, will be better. Thinking about some of the special populations by teachers, we have 1.1% that work with our bilingual or ESL. That, and we were talking about this today, that's kind of misleading, because when they're talking about that, we do have teachers that are ESL certified, but for this they also have to be RLA certified, because to teach in the ESL program you have to have your reading language arts and your ESL. So we've got lots of math that have it, but they don't qualify for this. Our CTE, we have 10%. GT, we have 0.4%, and I think that's one of the things we want to increase, but we've also specialized at each campus somebody that is kind of dedicated to that. And then our special education, we have 4.9% of our teachers that are certified.
I'll talk about this. Go ahead and go to the next one. You have to report your violent and criminal incidents, but again, it is something that for whatever reason, the specificity of it was taken out of our systems until just the other day. Dr. Nelson and I were looking at it. For instance, bullying is a big deal these days. And you can see, according to that, we have no bullying. But y'all also know that's not true. And that's because it hasn't been getting reported the proper way. And so that's one of the things we're working on, is making sure that all we have up there, if you look at that, it's controlled and substance and drugs. So every kid that got a DAP placement or got out of placement was due to controlled substance and drugs. That's mostly vapes, but we do have some other things that was just nowhere to report it. So the next time you see this, there will be bullying and some subcategories, so we know what kind of bullying is going on our
Actually, that'll probably
campuses
hit in 2 years because it
as
was
well.
2 years.
Well, yeah, 2 years down the road.
What does that mean? Not properly reported? Like how
Not
do you,
illegal.
No, I know that,
but
how do you-
in the sense that, like in Dr. Nell, we were literally just looking at it before we came in here. Our Skyward system has, when you put April Martinez got in trouble, I got a drop-down box of things that I can check. I can't add anything. If it's not in that drop-down box, I can't check it.
Okay.
And so if it hadn't been in that drop-down box, there's no way anybody would have ever checked it.
So does that come on, like who does that?
We're fixing. You want to talk about that a little bit?
So yes, we're doing a civil rights report that's required every other year, and in there, like he said, April Martinez, what did you do? And we need more defined offenses in there so that we can segregate and say it's bullying, it's fighting, it's weapons. We need to make sure that everything that they asked for in the civil rights report is in there.
Even within bullying, we want to know, was it bullying because of race? Was it bullying because of gender? That's where we want it to go, so we have better opportunity to help our kids.
Okay, so it'd be us that does it, or parents.
We're in the process.
No,
We're in the process of
Okay.
changing the system so as
When
the
as
right
a child
things. In.
gets in trouble, you go, okay.
Yes.
We have 2 systems that we were putting it in, so if we want to go back, we can still see some, but it's not one that connects to the state. It's kind
Okay.
of more internal.
So say a kid, officers go, or teachers or admin or whatever goes and pulls a kid out for bullying to talk to him to see what's going on, and they find him. They see a vape in their pocket.
Yeah. So
And they
what
go
you're asking
in-
is, what did it get reported as?
Yes.
Probably got reported as a vape.
So
But we can report multiple things.
right. So the original reason sometimes
Could have been
not.
something else.
Yeah.
100%. Yes, sir.
So we need to report each of those,
Right,
and then we need to report the consequence that went with it.
Right. Okay.
okay.
One of the last things is the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. This is where we're tracking what our students do after they graduate. This is actually from the 2020, the class of 2020, because it runs so far behind because they track them for over a year in college and then they finally report it. So out of the class of 2020, we had 115 graduates. We had 13 go to 4-year universities, and you can see the breakdown of their GPAs. And then we had 15 go to 2-year public universities. 1 was an independent, and then we had 64 that we couldn't track, or Texas Hospital Education couldn't track. So this is one of the things that we've talked about, and they've talked a lot at the service center on how do we make sure that once they leave us and we don't see them anymore, how are we continuing to support them? How are we one of the things we looked at is if you do have a student that gets ready, 2 years, 3 years down the road that wants to do grad school, how do we help support them in that? And so one of the programs that we were looking at houses stuff. It houses like their essays and everything, and it'll keep it for I think 6 or 7 years so that they can go back and have access to it. It's just getting it up and going and getting our kids to utilize it and know how to do that so that they aren't starting from scratch and then say, I'm done with this and quit. This is one of the big things that all other schools are struggling with as well, because once they're not yours, there's only so much you can do. And so I'm anxious to see kind of where this goes in the future and some of the creative ways that we get about making sure that they're continuing on. And then the very last thing is it's a link to the financial report from 21-22 because the newest one hasn't been released. I think that'll be like in March.
So before we sit down, and again, later tonight, the principals are going to talk and kind of link to that. But every single slide in my head, I was thinking of something that, I'd like to tell them what we have planned. But you just have to look at it as a big picture. I tell you all this all the time. Everything's linked. All right? Culture matters because culture is going to keep your teachers. All right? Culture is going to make sure those kids come to school. Culture is going to help your discipline. All right? Your expectation of the students matters because students will do whatever you expect them to do. Our kids are no different than any kid I've ever been around. And if you ask them to do something and give them the tools to do it, they will go do it. We have not done our part in asking those adults to ask those kids. And it matters that we're on the same page. It matters that they're on my page, because if they're not, we'll fail. We've all got to be pushing the same way. Because where we want to go is a place Lamesa has not been. And it, as I've said a lot tonight, it's not going to be easy. But if we get there in 3 years, you're going to be looking at this saying, how in the world did we pull this off? And I believe we'll get there, and I believe we can do it. But everybody's got to be rowing the same direction at all times. And that's where we're at right now. We're at the part where change is hard. It's easy to change culture. It's hard to change the daily activity of your adults, and that is where we're at right now. But we will get through it.
One of the things we talk about, and we laugh about it, we're working with a consultant that he talks about how hope is not an instructional strategy. We've got to have a plan. And I think, we thought, well, I think this has happened, or I hope this is what we're doing. And he was like, hope is not a strategy. You can't go with that. And so our principals have been charged with really being the instructional leaders, being in the classrooms more, working with our CSEs to make sure everybody knows what to look for, what should you see when you walk in a room. So our walkthroughs that we're doing, we're increasing those to make sure that, if Richie goes in and sees someone who walks out, he's like, yeah, that was great. And I'm like, I don't know what you saw because I saw something different. So we're doing cross-campus walkthroughs, and a lot of things just to make sure everybody is on the same page, going the same direction. Because if we're just flying by the seat of our pants, we're not going to get anywhere.
Big picture questions. If not, we'll pass this and we'll keep going, and then when the principals get up, y'all may have some more.
Sweet.
Okay. Thank y'all.
Thank you. This next will be the routine district operations, the consent agenda minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Is the financial report? Is somebody?
Ron's not here. So I want you to ask. I'll kind of go through it the same as he does, but there's a good chance you may ask something specific, and I may have to say, I'll have to get back to you. But just if you'll go through it with me real quick. The big pages I look at, I'll just walk you through it from how I look at it every time. I always look at that first page real close, and I look at the third column from the left. Because where it says FYTD 23-24, because that's the percent of that line that to this date has been spent. And so for me, if you're already at 50, that means that there's conversations either been had or conversations coming. Because we've got to be a little more responsible with our money. Which goes exactly to what I was just saying academically. There's been a culture here, and we're trying to change it. And we will change it, but the adult behavior is not always the easiest thing to change. So you can kind of go through there, and you can see some that are a bit high. That does not mean they're out of control. That means at this point it's fixable because we still got plenty of time. But that's how I check to see what I monitor. And then I just go through the check registry. And if I got questions, 90% of the time I can see something and I know what it is. If I don't, I go back and I ask Callie, I ask Ron, or I ask Melissa. I track our utilities and our water, our gas, and our electric. Our electric, we're spending less than we normally do. Our water, we're still spending about the same. Our gas, 1 month will be a little lower, 1 month will be a little. But when I say gas, I mean energy. Our bus gas has begun to decrease ever since we've started monitoring our transportation fuel. But if you'll go through, and you've had a chance to look at this, you'll see a big one on page 2 on the check registry that's $46,000. That's grant. When you see something that's security, remember that's grant. And I don't know, Dr. Nelson, you probably already know this. I was on a Zoom today. They're in March. They're probably going to go the second safety grant, which they think will give schools another $90,000, and there'll be much less restrictions. They said at this point you'll be able to use it to fix anything that you need fixed. So going through there, most of it made sense to me. There was not anything, honestly, I thought our check registry was one of the calmer ones that we've had. There wasn't much on there that really jumped out to me. And then
Gates and Panic, where that'd be the grant.
Grant, yes, ma'am. And then on the back page, you can kind of see it again. It's more or less percentage in total, and that's why I like percentage better. totals, whatever it is. I mean, you can look at your home bank account, and that money doesn't matter as much as the percentage of how much you have left in the bank. And that's what I'm always watching, is how much do you have left in the bank. Because if it gets, if we're not far enough into the year for you to be where you're at, then that means that we need to redefine your processes.
What's the SRO vehicle equipment?
We had to get, because we have now 5 officers, 4, we had to get one of them outfitted with all of the sirens, the lights, the CBs, and all that stuff. I think, well, he's not in here, Officer Boyd got to make that trip for us. I hear him. But that's what that was.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Does part of that go to the from grant?
That will not.
No.
That first grant, and Dr. Nelson could tell you about it, was very specific. Now this next one, where they say 90,000 with not much stipulations, it might could have,
Yeah.
but not that first one. They were specific on what you could and could not spend it on. Like if you look on page 6, one thing that we're working on, page 6, about partway down, you're going to see it says dual credit, $4,186, and late today. We think we discovered, and I don't want to speak too much, but I'm very excited. I think we discovered a way that for at least 80% of our kids, we can get their dual credit completely paid for, which to me is one of the things, like I said, that will just change the whole landscape. And I've got to call into the people that I think can guide me the right way. So that's exciting on that. Anything else on this? We do have a donation that I want to hit on real quick. And then we need to back up. Gary, you're on here. You want to go ahead and talk about your deal?
Yeah.
Because this falls under financial report.
Thank you.
Are you going to kick me off with that? Here, I'll kick myself off for you.
Troy's trying to get it set up to do the computer. Just 1 second. This I give you here was from our Farm Fresh challenge that we did in October. And this is the letters we got showing our congratulations from to Mr. Ritchie and to Ron, showing that they appreciate that we did it. We got 5 items on the menu this year for Farm Fresh. We had milk, peaches, 2 types of tomatoes, and we had mint. Next year we're going to try to increase it and do a lot more. We got 2 little certificates.
We got 2 awards this year. This is just what they gave us, which are little kids. 1 award is from Lena Wilson, who is the Assistant Commissioner, right?
Yeah.
And then Sid Miller, who is TDA Commissioner.
No.
We have 2 different ones.
Yeah.
Little pins here.
Yes.
And then the other thing is something I give Ron each and every month, showing our sales for January. We were up breakfast 246 meals over last year. Our lunches were up 720 meals over last year. Plus our enrollment has dropped, but we're still increasing our sales. So more kids are eating in the cafeteria. Food cost is really good. It's a little high. It's not really high in August and in December or January. It always goes up because we don't have any food. Because August we're starting school, and in December we try to get rid of all of our food for the winter break. And so it's a little bit higher, but it's not much. And then the pictures are showing the LTO for January, which is the turkey.
Birria.
And it went really good. We actually had it again at North Day on the menu, and the kids really like it. And then the last page is a picture of the appreciation meals that we've done for y'all.
We appreciate it.
It was good.
Yeah.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
And Charlie wants to show you, this is our new setup for our NutriSlice. We have, Charlie, go ahead and tell them about it.
So the first thing I want to show you is how parents teachers, if they have a child, how you can access our new menus. Simpler than our last system that we had. So you're going to go here to the Lamesa ISD website. You'll hit Explore and then down to Dining. It looks like there's nothing on it at the current moment. It's very new. I'm still working on it. So you'll click View Menus, and it'll show all 4 of your schools. You can have your own login and then heart which schools. Say like you have a kid at high school, a kid at South, a kid at North. You can heart those schools so those are on your track list. I'm going to go into high school here. We'll go ahead and do breakfast. You can have your menu. Let me clear all this out and I'll show you how to get to it all. So you can have your menu as daily, which is what you're just showing today, weekly, which is for the entirety of the week, and then as well as monthly. So we'll go to weekly. Up here you'll see these filters. If you have a child that has major allergens, so milk, tree nuts, and soy, it will cut out what products, what foods they can't have.
I like that.
And it'll give you different options. Some of our recipes on Prima don't necessarily show what allergens are in them, but you can click on it. This one says scrambled eggs with cheese. It also lists the ingredients. So liquid egg, if your child has an allergy to eggs, it'll show it, regardless if it's got the incomplete specialty diet. Another thing on top of that is if you've got a child that's diabetic, like I'm diabetic, I wish I had this as a kid. You hit carb count, it'll track what's on the menu for the entirety of the week. It'll give you the carbs, calories, I think, it'll do fibers and carbohydrates. I'm still playing around with it. I think there's other features that I don't necessarily know.
We had it for like a month, so we're learning.
They were just installed last month, and so we're still learning. So the next little thing I want to show you is what we currently have at high school playing on the monitors. This is just what we were showing. It's going to take a minute. It's got to reload it. And it's very slow.
And during breakfast and lunch, it'll show the menu on the board, and it kind of just a screenshot. It just kind of goes up the menu board.
It's a rolling board, so it'll show the entirety of our menu for breakfast that day. So our main entree, the list of our cereals, the fruits, the vegetables, the milks, the juices. This is what I have currently. It'll show little fun food facts, the time as of Central, and then what we're currently forecasted for the city of Lamesa. Just little part there. Lastly, I would like to show you Aramark's little videos for North and South. These are specifically directed for elementary students, just because it helps them learn healthier subjects with their food. Let's see. Of course, it's not on the one that I wanted to. Well, it was there earlier today.
Is it the nutritious program yet?
Which one?
The first one there?
You know what? No, that's something else, I believe. Yes, this is something different. We had videos marked for Aramark from, it's called the ACE Show. It's short little videos like a podcast where Ace, which is the little fox mascot, will teach children different dietary, healthy food options and stuff like that. I wish I could show you. It's not on here anymore. But I do recommend parents watch it first. I found them very entertaining. Just to watch it, get a feel of it, and then you can show your children. If you want. I mean, I want to be able to show the children while we're in school, but also out of school, so that way they know, hey, tomorrow at school, if we're having this, I'll choose this instead of this. So that's all I have for
Can a
today.
parent click on like elementary, especially control what their kid gets through the line, based off the computer setting, like they go through the line? And do the workers in the cafeteria,
Yeah, that would.
Can they lock up and say, okay, you have allergy to that, you can't have it? I mean, is that controlled?
Normally, allergies come through me from either the parent or the nurse from that campus. Right now, I have a pre-K student that has 5 of the major 8 allergies, and we have to list everything he has. We've got a special menu for him. We've got special products that are coming in, just to ensure that he himself can enjoy the food that we're giving to other students without the dangers of having cross-contamination or anaphylactic shock.
And we also have it on the outside of the doors. And it doesn't have the kid's name, but like if there's a kid in my classroom that is allergic to A, B, and C, on our door, those are listed as cannot be in the...
So like when you're going through the lunch line, his name will plot, like if he's a kindergartner, he's coming through, he has a peanut allergy. Before he goes to the line, he's already going to have his food with no
Yes.
Correct.
And that's what we got the one kid at the elementary at South. He's like that. And so I'm going to go this weekend to Costco's and buy some products because Cisco doesn't really carry a lot of the products because the national chain and they don't carry the products. But I can pick it up at Costco.
It's hard because he has a one specific major allergy that specific ingredient, whether it's an oil-based or the actual product, is found in everything. So it's very hard to find certain foods that he can have. We're lucky that we found a lot of foods that he can have that we will be implementing into the future. Because like I said, research is hard, especially with allergens. Tree nuts, peanuts, all that is easier to do because you can look at something and be like, it's straightforward. This was processed in a facility with peanuts, walnuts, things like that. Soy, which is the allergen that I'm talking about, is mixed into everything. So butter, mainly soy. Breads, they have oils, vegetable oils that are derived from soy products. It's very hard, but we're trying to implement it so that way kids with allergens can eat proper foods.
And let me say this, even before we had this technology, and Christy and Tipton will say this, our cafeteria people at North and South are unreal. Those people at South, that year I was the principal there, they knew those kids' names. Everyone, by the second day, they know their allergens, and they don't let them. I mean, so even if we didn't have this, we got too many people looking after these kids to take care of them. It's amazing how good they are.
What's that bunch of names in that pops up on the computer?
Allergen, shellfish, milk.
And we have every kid's in
Oh,
the
100%.
cafeteria with everyone trained to distribute everything.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. We have, I believe, I know 2 of my ladies, the cashiers at South, are trained on the allergens. They have a list of the actual student with their allergens at the register. So they know even if our systems are down, they can still see the list and know who has allergens and who does not.
Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then on the financial report, guys, the only other thing, number 5, we did have a donation from Basewater Exploration and Production LLC. Again, that's happened a few times since I've been over here. Someone literally just shows up. Burnett says, "Hey, Richie, there's some people here that want to see you," and they just give us a check, you know. And I believe it's because we're doing a lot of good things, and they're starting to take notice. That last one, number 6, we're moving that to the next board meeting because Mr. Sellers needs to be here to talk about it. So we're going to move that over there. Any questions on the financial report?
Make a motion to approve as presented. Oh, and table it. Table it to next board meeting.
Second.
There you go.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next will be administration post.
Okay, so and we're going to start with Doug from South, and I tasked each of them with, I think, what was it, 3 or 4 questions?
3 topics.
3 topics to go over, and I kind of like to let all of them go, and then y'all can ask questions, because again, I think questions that you might have for one will apply to the other. So let them all go through their little, it's all academic, everything's academic based, and then we'll open it up to questions for all of them. Okay? All right, Mr. Tipton.
All right.
Good evening, everybody. Well, I hope I made this concise enough, and I think the data that you guys saw earlier will kind of follow along with what we're on task with doing here. The three topics that I'm really going to cover, which Mr. Ritchie has addressed with us, is what we're doing on a daily basis, weekly basis in our classrooms to ensure that academic progress is being made with our teachers and our students. So really getting hands-on and getting in classrooms, making sure we're inspecting what we expect is kind of what term we use. Second topic is what we're doing to ensure accountability. So making sure teachers know, kids know, this is the expectation, this is what we're doing, and being able to give feedback to those teachers and making sure that we're moving in the right direction. And the third thing is expectations for what we're doing when kids are struggling in academic areas. So the first topic I'm going to go over is it's basically kind of our day-to-day operations. It's in addition to using a structured curriculum in all classes with a strong focus on Tier 1 instruction, which I know Ms. Bauman has spoke on, we've spoke on previously. We're doing some things on a daily and weekly basis to ensure our academic progress is basically getting better. So one of the first things we do at my campus, and this is a weekly deal, is every Monday I meet with the South leadership and our CICs for what we call a structured communications meeting. And what that does is in this meeting we look at the current week and discuss several points. We're going to look at collecting and analyzing student and teacher data to identify any types of trends, needs, any progress that's being made, and any opportunities that we might be missing in the classroom. So we do that collectively and speak collectively as a group on a Monday, and it's kind of like having a game plan going in for the week. We know what the teacher's curriculum looks like. We've looked at the lesson plans. We've taken time to see exactly what's supposed to be going on in the classroom during that time to make sure we're getting our correct number of minutes, making sure we're on track, on pace with our lessons. We discuss look-fors, so we know what we're looking for when we go into the classroom, so we're very deliberate on what we're looking for in our walkthroughs. We spend time discussing previous observations. We develop plans to improve where needed, and this meeting basically helps us create a mental model for the week ahead. So we know going in what we're looking for in the classroom with the teachers, with instruction, so we've got a good game plan. Where we're not going in, we can see an objective, we see something going on, and it might look right, but it might not be right. So it allows us to look at that and make sure it lines up with our Tier 1 instruction. Every day, we're in classrooms, observing teachers, giving them feedback. We also use a universal walkthrough program that generates not only data for us, but is able to give feedback to the teachers, and that's something new that has changed. It's not something new as in we haven't been doing it. We do have a new program that we have been kind of running trial runs on and trying to see how it looks on our end. And so that's kind of a new thing that we're excited about. We have a structured Tier 2 and Tier 3 system that we utilize every day to ensure that those students being pulled are getting the supports that they need. So we have structured time when those students are getting pulled for Tier 2 and Tier 3. We also work with our ACE program, and this is something that was kind of new. They came to us and they were like, hey, what can we do to help? Anytime you can steal some time is good. Because at 3:30 when the day's over, we got an ACE program that wants to come and talk to our teachers specifically and say, hey, what are your kids that I have in ACE, maybe a Tier 2 or 3 kid, what are they struggling with? And our teachers are now getting with the ACE program for those kids, providing them different types of materials to work with those kids during the ACE program. And so they've kind of partnered together, and we're able to steal a little bit of time to work with those things with those kids. Second topic, we want to ensure that moving forward, we're moving forward in the right direction and have a system of accountability. And you've heard this. I heard Ms. Bauman say it earlier. We call this process, we want to trust but verify. So we want to trust that you're doing it, but we also want to verify to make sure that we're doing it correctly and we understand the way things are being communicated to students, and it matches what we're looking for academically. Some of the things we do to ensure this are we clearly outline our expectations for lesson plans, grading, and instructional delivery during our PLC meetings, which happen weekly. We discuss Tier 1 instruction and make sure it is aligned with school goals and standards. That way we're making sure we're meeting the rigor of the test. So our curriculum that is written, our curriculum that's taught, and our curriculum that's tested is all aligned with each other.
Can I stop you for a minute?
Sure.
Because I think that's something that all of you will hear a common issue in Lamesa has been the written curriculum versus the tested curriculum. That's the same. The taught curriculum is where we have veered away. It's written, it's tested up here, but we have taught it down here. Does that make sense? And that's one of our biggest focuses, is to make sure we are teaching it just like it's written, so that when it's tested, they're ready to go. You'll hear that a lot.
Yeah, and to elaborate on that, to give you an example, if we look at the STAR test and we look at the levels of questioning on the STAR test, we're going to have 50% of questions that are going to be at the Tier 2 level. Well, if we go into a classroom, we're monitoring how many Tier 1 and Tier 2 questions we're hearing in the classroom and seeing in the classroom with those teachers. So if we're not hitting that 50% of Tier 2 level and Tier 2 or 3 level questioning, we know that students are not getting the level of questions or questions on an exam that are not meeting basically the rigor of what the test is going to be. And even though my kids don't take the STAR, we still want to implement that so they're used to having that type of level of questioning. All timelines are communicated to staff, and we inspect what we expect by checking to make sure all required information is documented in the appropriate place. For example, every Monday, lesson plans are due. CICs, myself and my AP, we check those to make sure they're in place. We have to have those for our meeting. So we're going to check and inspect what we expect to make sure we get that feedback, and we can find out if they're not there. Did they accidentally forget to move them? Did they not do them? What do we need to do to make sure we've got those things in line that we're making sure that we need for that day? Deadlines are in place to ensure grades are being communicated. Every Thursday, tour trackers go home with students for parents with updated information on grades, attendance, behavior, and any other thing they would need to communicate. We also set deadlines for grades to be turned in and then have teachers verify those grades before they're finalized. So we do that consistently. And the last topic is our expectations in regards to what we do when kids are struggling in an academic area. First thing is we utilize our small groups. During computer time, students are struggling with concepts are pulled by teachers and have their small groups going on during that time. During RTI time, we do the same thing. We run stations where we pull small groups, and that's specific to ELAR. Additionally, we have Tier 3 students being pulled by our interventionists during time to help these kids sometimes. And, they're pulled during RTI time. They're pulled every once in a while if they have to because of a conflict. They might even pull them out of music one day. But they are getting that Tier 2 and Tier 3 instruction consistently that they're supposed to be getting. We also have many teachers that build small group instruction into their normal class ELAR time or math time to where they're pulling those small groups with a normal class schedule, and we highly encourage that too. So those are things we're doing at our campus. Ours will be a little different than everybody else's, but you'll probably hear a lot of the same things. So I think we're going in the right direction. And yes, it's uncomfortable sometimes for the teachers because like Mr. Ritchie said, the change is hard, but I think we're going to see the good results from it. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And as Christy's coming up, go ahead and come on up, Christy. He said something that I have learned. Ms. Baumann probably already knew this. We've been looking at a lot of very successful secondary campuses. And the really successful secondary campuses look way more like an elementary classroom than in the old school secondary classroom. He talked about small groups. When we go see successful secondary campuses, those teachers are still working in small groups, and it looks just like a well-run elementary, which is, again, a change in mindset for those secondary teachers. Go ahead.
So, good evening. Thank you guys for your time and for what you do. For North Elementary, I get super excited because I can't brag on the work that's being done daily. So, originally, at the beginning of this year, we started with changing the culture to a culture of excellence, and we've even done some book studies. We've talked about ownership, about the things that we can control, the things we can't control, and then finding a plan of attack for that. So I'm going to share with you some of those things that we do. Similar process as far as day-to-day, and then what our focuses are on classroom instruction, and then also for students that struggle in different areas. So first, we started at the beginning of the year, and actually some of you got to join us with this when we used our Google Forms for our walkthrough. So our teachers initially set goals for themselves, and then we started monitoring those from the beginning, adding in those level of questioning, asking why, tier 1, 2, and 3 questions, which just is talking about the level of rigor and where those answers can be found, the level of thought that goes into asking those questions. We even have our PE teacher that does a great job with that as well. So it's school-wide implementation that we focused on a lot of these things. The next thing, similar as far as the aligned curriculum, that's not only in the classroom. We do attend, our administrative team attends every PLC every week, so we have a much tighter picture of the conversations that are going on and then what that looks like in the classroom, and whether those are aligned as well. Teachers are not able to say, I'm doing this, if they're not doing it, which might have happened before if we weren't available to be there. The targeted walkthroughs that we're changing to, we're super excited about. I called it beta testing when I wrote about it, because you can add videos, you can do quick feedbacks to the teachers, and that's the number one thing that our teachers ask for is feedback. They want to do a better job. They want to know what you're seeing when you come in, and so we're super excited about that. We also review data. Every time that we test, we're on, for RLA, we have a mid-module and an end-of-module. I'm sorry, take that back. For math, we have a middle and then an end. And for our wonders, they have it a little bit different, spaced out. For each one of those, we look at the data. We dissect those tests. We look at, okay, are there misconceptions? What are they? Was the test question a good question? Where was the rigor for that question? How often is that TEAC tested on the STAR test? We focus on those things that students all got, those things also that nobody got. Are we going to reteach that as a whole group? And then we also look at the small groups, focus on essential standards, those that have leverage, they're crossing over multiple content areas. We also look at will they be tested the next year? How often are they tested? We look at high frequency, all of those things often. So our teachers are able to have those conversations. They're able to look at a TEAC, not all of them fluently, but go, well, that was tested once in the last 5 years. We're going to teach it, but it's not the main thing we're teaching. We're looking at this TEAC that's been tested 7 times in the last 7 years, and there's 5 questions on the test. So just knowing the battle that we're up against, really, and being educated in that.
And something Christy hit on right there, and she does a great job of, is they have all that talk in that PLC about what's tested a lot and what's not, but that's not how it's relayed to the kids. Mm-hmm. You want to kind of talk about that, because you hit so heavy on making sure you're hitting the right thing that's tested.
Sure.
But when you go to the kids, you're not talking about the test.
No. So what it looks like in the classroom for the teachers to the students is we're looking at objectives in the classroom, and students knowing what they're supposed to know and be able to do by the end of a lesson. With the curriculum, the rigor with Eureka has been amazing. It is different. And so teachers have, I won't lie, at the beginning it was a struggle. Like, how do you get all this in 100 minutes? What does this look like? What do these fluency checks look like? Now they're like, our 5th grade team, we just, in their PD this Monday, they were talking about how they were doing centers in the 5th grade with the Eureka Math program. And they were able to do that with frequency every single day, where it's not, hey man, we wish we could have small groups. It's something that they're doing every day. We've also had teachers go and walk through and visit other classrooms. So for a struggling teacher that's like, I still can't get that timing down, then we provide coverage and they can go look. And it's been eye-opening. When they see it, they can go right back next door and implement it the very next day. So that's been a very positive thing. We completed our T-test observations early so we could have those intensive conversations with our teachers about what their goals were, and not just about today, about tomorrow, short-term, long-term, what it looks like on our campus for them. That went into what we look for in their classrooms, how we interact with our kids, the full package, I guess you could say, not an individual piece. All of that goes back to the culture. Our primary focus is on Tier 1 instruction. We have found that we've had specific gaps in our special populations and how we intentionally prepare for them before we teach the lesson. So that's one of our main focuses. This last Monday, what we did was, previously we do a lot of Google Docs as far as surveys to keep the temperature, what's going on our campus. The last one that we did about special education showed that there were some gaps in our understanding, what accommodations were, what modifications were, what do we do in class, how do we prepare to teach those students. So Monday our diagnostician covered quite a few of those. We also have worked with our teaching assistants and provided them technology so they can better assist the teachers in the classroom, whether it's developing graphic organizers or changing notes from regular notes to fill in the blank notes, sentence stems, where we can support our teachers better in that initial instruction. Also, how we approach our students that struggle or have gaps. A lot of that is taken care of during our win time. During this last PD on Monday, we also used that time to not only talk about it, look at the data, and pick which kids, but we lined up the next 3 weeks on what we were going to do specifically those days, which kids we were going to pull. The spreadsheet was created. We like spreadsheets. And the math, RLA, and science team were able to look at where kids needed to go. Maybe there was some bargaining on, I get this kid today, you get them tomorrow. So we can address as many gaps in instruction as possible. Our dyslexia program is also pulled during win time, as well as our students that are served in Tier 3. Those are students that have already been served during our win time. WIN stands for what I need. They've already been served during that, and the small group hasn't been enough to close the gap as much as we want. So the Tier 3 is an even smaller group and more intensive and more specific skill development for those students. Let me see. I think that covers just about everything. Something else that we've done and focused on during our PD time, we have reached out to to South and to the middle school and had our second grade teachers meet with our third grade so we can continue that alignment with instruction, as well as our fifth grade to sixth grade. And we did that in all areas, RLA, math, and science. That was very beneficial, so they could have those conversations starting with second grade. Third grade could say, what are you doing? They're also doing Eureka. It's great. They'll have these skills when they get to you next year. And then the same thing, sixth grade was able to convey to our fifth grade teachers, hey, this is where you can help us. These are gaps that we have seen. So that's also been a great benefit. We do the same as far as walkthroughs daily. Those are documented. We share feedback. Really just everything that we can think of to help support the teachers do the best that they can for the kids every day. There's such a positive atmosphere there. It's exciting to be there. Like I said, if you've got, I mentioned PE, but it's just the same thing if you go to our music class as far as everybody being all in and working towards student success. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Jasper.
I'm just going to say it. With ours, like what we're doing on a daily basis, it starts with the culture, like Richie said. So every day, you just kind of do a little culture check. Make sure your culture, just that relationships, everything. You want your teachers happy, you want your kids happy. So I think I start the morning greeting all my teachers. I go through the halls, I say good morning to every teacher after I greet the students coming in. There's sometimes I miss, but most days you'll find me in the hallway or in the cafeteria greeting the kids. I just think that's important to say good morning to them and let them know you're glad they're there. And the same with the teachers, they need that too. the second thing I do is like whenever I'm making a decision for that day, I stop and I really evaluate the situation and the decision I'm making. Is it what's best for our kids, or is it what's comfortable or best for the adults? And we're all doing that. That's something that
district-wide. That's been an initiative. Quit making decisions because of what's comfortable for the adults. Make decisions to do what's right for the kids.
And even what's easy or comfortable for us, because some of the decisions we have to make, it's uncomfortable for us as well. But that's where another thing I really encourage our teachers to take risks and be vulnerable. And for me to expect that out of them, I have to demonstrate that too. So trying things that you're not used to, or trying things that you haven't been comfortable with, and asking the questions that kids may not know the answer to. That is a risk, because you might get a room full of crickets just sitting there looking at you. That's not a bad thing. That's letting the kids know, okay, this is what we're expected to learn. So just being okay with that and comfortable with that's a big thing. And I think our teachers needed to hear it's okay if you teach a lesson and it's not a success that day. It's okay. You can come back and recoup from that, because kids need to see us make mistakes too, but we learn also from those failures. So I know I've done it, and so I think they need to hear it. They don't always have to be perfect, and that's where teachers will grow and get better. First of all, I remind our students each day that we have expectations for them, and I expect them to be where they're supposed to be and do what they're supposed to be doing. That's not just for the kids, it's for the staff too, and for me as well, and we all need to give 100%. And when you walk into a classroom, I want to see that I will and we will statements. So we will statements are what they're going to learn, and I will is what they're going to be able to do when they're done learning. We monitor teachers' lessons plans. We attend PLCs. We can, intentional classroom walkthroughs. On my weekly email, I put things that I'm going to be looking for that week when I go into a classroom. And I've started a new thing too, where I ask them a question and I want feedback from them, so that it just helps us kind of be on the same page and know what we're expecting from, and it reinforces it without being just direct and they feel like, oh my gosh, she's always on this. It's just, we're all doing this. I expect our teachers to use academic language when they're in the classroom, instead of saying, plus or take away and, add more. Use the language that it's supposed to say. If you're having a variable, instead of just saying the letters, call it a variable, because that's what it is. They need to know that language, so when they do go to the STAR test, they're not lost on what's being asked of them. We're in the process right now of creating intentional focus groups. That's for our older kids. So those are when you saw the graphs up there that Ms. Wallman was showing you, the kids that we can move to the next level. What are they missing, and what do they need so we can push them to that next level, but also working with our kids that need a lot of help. And so we're really working on that with them. And then we have tea time, which is like their win times, and that's where we do our intervention time. So during that time, our teachers are expected to pull an additional small group. So it can be any kid in, let's say, 6th grade. And let's say our 6th grade teacher, Ms. Mentz, needs to work with kids. She can pull anywhere from 3 to 5 kids to work with. And we have a shared spreadsheet where they can go in and document what kid they're going to pull on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So the teachers aren't trying to pull the same kid at once. And it also creates collaboration with the teachers, because what if all the teachers need the same kid?
Which happens a lot.
Decide, okay, you take on Monday, you take on Tuesday, and so they're all getting it, and wherever they're struggling the most, that teacher can pull them again on Friday, so they're getting a double dose of help. That's one thing that we are really monitoring and inspecting, because it's an expectation. And if they're not pulling a small group, I do go in and ask, well, where's your small group? How come you don't have one? Not in front of the kids, obviously, but why is this not being done? And we expect every teacher on our campus who provides any form of instruction to be pulling a small group, with the exception of PE and athletics. But even if it's an elective, you need to work with that kid if they're struggling. Some of the things that I hold our campus accountable for regarding lesson plans and stuff is, again, monitoring. What I expect, lesson plans are due at 8 a.m. each Monday. I go in and check them. If they're not done, I'll send a nice little email, hey, your lesson plan's not in. What can I help you do? Or if I notice like they missed a couple days. Sometimes teachers will do that because they're carrying over what they're doing, but I need to know that that's what you're doing. I still want to see you're having a plan. If I see that sometimes elective classes, they think, oh, well, I can show a movie that day or play a game. No, that's not what we need to be doing. Like, what can you go back to reinforce learning that day? Not saying those things are bad, but it doesn't need to happen every Friday because it's Friday. If it's not being done, I also offer assistance. How can I help you? Like, grades is a big thing. At the beginning of the year, I had a teacher really struggling with grades. Well, she was overwhelming herself with her process. So she needed just to be showed a better process of how to do the grading. And just taking time to work with them and let them see that you're willing to help. That's something I feel needs to be done. Going back to our small groups, I'm kind of all over the place. When we have our regular classroom instruction, I'm also asking teachers to pull small groups. Like Mr. Ritchie said, when you come into our campus, you will see kind of an elementary type, I don't want to say setting, but if you walk in and you see instruction, it wouldn't be uncommon for you to see a teacher sitting down working with a group of kids and then rotating through the class to work with different kids. Not just your low-level kids, also the kids that need challenge. So you have your gifted and talented kids that those kids need a little more rigor. You want to keep them going and learning. You don't want to just stop because they know the content. So what can you do to work with them to put them up to the next level and challenge them? At first, it was a little hard for our teachers because it wasn't something they're used to. I can say as a teacher in a secondary setting, I didn't know what a small group was when I taught high school and juniors and seniors. I didn't know what that looked like. Even going to the middle school, I had to see it looking at elementary classrooms and seeing what worked for them. And I called mine, learning circles, or like if we had a reading circle, you just find different creative names so they don't feel like they're in elementary, or you don't even say anything. You just have them in groups where you need to go and you just rotate through. I think grouping has to be intentional sometimes, not always, because there's times that unintentional grouping is good because they're learning from their peers, but when you're trying to teach a direct or a concept that they really are struggling with, you want to have intentional groups so that you can go and work with that group on the same thing and nobody's confused or lost. Again, the academic language versus the slang, and then we really are pushing the keep teaching until all students learn, and reteaching, and really looking at how they're reteaching if they're not learning. They can't just go teach the same lesson again because clearly it didn't work the first time for that kid. So what are you doing different for them? How are you changing the activities up? And then also looking at your lesson plan when you're planning, you should be planning with every kid in mind. So if you have a kid that have accommodations, you should already have a plan of how you're going to differentiate for that kid that day. Because you're going to know, if you know your kids and you have the relationship, where are they struggling or what's going to trip them up. So really taking into account on that when you're planning helps all of that. And then immediately clearing up misconceptions. If you're monitoring and adjusting your kids and you're asking questions and you see that there's a misconception, you don't just keep moving on. You clear it up immediately for them so that you can move on. Because if you're providing really good Tier 1 instruction, then you're not having to reteach so much. And so it's teaching the teachers, this takes an extra step away from you. If we're executing this really well, we're not going to have to do this so much.
And that's another cultural shift in our district. The idea has always been if they don't get it, I can just send them to Tier 2. I can just send them to somebody else and they teach them. We're trying to focus on the Tier 1, the original instruction, and make it better than what it has been in the past.
And then one thing that I require our teachers to do is they're required to make 5 positive phone calls a week home. And the reason I require that is because parents want to hear what their kids are doing good. And it can be a small learning stride. They weren't really getting, the plot line. But this week they worked really hard and they're really beginning to get the concept. It doesn't mean they have to master it, but parents want to hear something good versus negative all the time. And so, and they tell their kid, hey, guess what? You know, Miss Jasper called today. She said, you're really doing great in reading today. You know, you answered some questions really good today. I'm proud of you. So they're getting a positive from a parent and the school. And then it just builds their confidence, really, and lets them know they can learn. And if they're not getting it at home, because a parent is a parent that says, you know, good things to their kid, it's giving the parent a reason to boost their confidence without really realizing that's what they're getting.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Guerrero.
Good evening, Board President Gonzalez, Superintendent Ritchie, and board members. I appreciate this opportunity to share with you what's happening at Lamesa High School. Before we get started, we had a data meeting with Bauman and a couple of the CICs that we have. You know, we're talking about tests and we're talking about data and stuff, and really what I told Ms. Bauman is what I want to know. I'm an old ex-football coach, and that's really what I wanted to be, but the good Lord had something planned different for me to work with all kids and not just those in football. And so what I compare it to as a principal is I'm the head coach, and I have to prepare my kids not for a game, not for a playoff game. What I need to teach my kids is what they need to do, starting out with the very basic, and then take them through the season, and that by the time that we get to the end of the season, if we have prepared the kids correctly, then those kids are going to be successful no matter what comes at us. And so I take the same thought with our kids in education. I got to teach them what they're supposed to know in the high school level. And if I can prepare them the best that they can give, the best that we can offer, then the kids are going to be able to pass any test that the state has to throw at us because they're going to be prepared and have the tools in their toolbox to do what they need to do. So in saying that, I'd say the things that we do on a daily basis to ensure academic progress is getting better on our campus is we're performing walkthroughs. We're providing feedback to teachers, having one-to-one conversations with teachers, support teachers by holding students accountable for their learning, communicating to teachers to keep hard-to-teach kids in class. Those kids that are hard to teach, they want to let them go out of the classroom. Those are the kids we need to keep in class so that they get the education that they need to be successful. Making parent contacts, PLC and CIC support, and then implementing the cell phone policy to limit classroom distraction. I didn't know how much of a distraction it was, but I've heard from the teachers that has improved an enormous amount in our campus. Second of all, what are the things that we're doing to holding teachers on our campus accountable in regards to lesson plans, grades, and classroom instruction? The first three are lesson plans. Every day checking on lesson plans is submitted and providing feedback to those in need. There's some that I've talked to my team leaders about. We need to come up with a plan, and when they turn in lesson plans, because some plans are a dissertation, some plans are just one sentences, or some plans are in between. And so I really just want to come to the teachers and say, what do we consider that is a good plan that we can have in place so that when we submit lesson plans, we're pretty consistent with that. Discussing quality of lesson plans with individuals, I'll look at them and I will give some feedback to each individual. Those that are kind of long, I'd ask, what are we trying to get? What are you trying to tell me in these lesson plans? Because sometimes they get lost in the lesson plans. What I like, though, the teachers are real receptive to what's going on because they want to know what is expected of them, and I truly believe that's all teachers. And then the thing that I always say to my teachers, and I learned this from Dr. Nelson, my superintendent that was in a former district. He's passed away since, but he used to always say, plan your work and work your plan. And I believe that to be true. I stated that in our professional development on Monday. And I said that, and I saw the coaches laughing because I said, I don't know a football coach that goes out there and says, oh, let's see, what am I going to do today, tonight? No, we already have a game plan, and that's the way that our teachers should be every day in the classroom. I have a plan on what I'm going to do today, and I expect the kids to learn those things that you have in your lesson plans. As far as grades are concerned, I'm communicating to them about the 15 grades that are required during the 9 weeks period. And then at least just to remind them that at least one grade must be posted by Monday every week. And so I try to remind them to do those things.
One of the reasons we're doing that, and I'm sorry, Mr. Craig, to cut you off again, sometimes I'll link it back to why there's been a history of a kid having great grades, and it still happens to some, and that's why we have this in place to get it to happen less. And then all of a sudden, report card comes out, and that 85 dropped to a 63. But it was an 85 yesterday. And when they do that, if they do it right, that kid always knows, and that parent always knows where they stand, and they don't get surprised.
Thank you, sir. So we're not there yet, but we're getting there. And, you know, my goal is to hit 100%, not 90%, but all of us are doing that every day, or every week, so that when we have conversations, then I can support the teacher and say, no, we're doing that weekly to put those grades that we need to have in there. Then to classroom instruction, teachers are supported through PLCs with providing teacher strategies and TEAC breakdowns. What I've noticed just my first semester and going into the second semester is that my teachers just need in their toolbox, they need different teaching strategies so that they can have kids engaged every day, because kids, that's what they want. If you give them free time, they're gonna be distracted and do other things that they want, and that's why I just feel my teachers need a lot of teaching strategies so that they keep kids engaged, not busy, but engaged in what they need to be learning, and providing direct and honest feedback. And then the expectation in regards to tutorials and reteaching when students do not grasp the concept in the first time. Well, I'm just being brutally honest, and I'm going to say we're presently taking steps to provide staff development and training to support our teachers and using formative assessments that allow teachers to create small group instruction and interventions. And one of the things that our CICs that I think they did really well this Monday on the professional development is that we're using exit tickets to inform the teachers teaching. They're able to take those small exit tickets to see what kids know and don't know, so that we can assess what they need to have in their toolbox. And so it really has helped us to create a small formative assessment and give directly feedback the next day for those kids so that they can learn what they didn't grasp that day. And then the second part would be we're moving away from having students replacing incorrect answers with correct answers, and are presently teaching new concepts on how to reteach students on those areas not mastered. So we want to really, as Ms. Jasper said, we want to get those kids that have, say there's 10 questions on a test and they miss 3. We don't want to have to teach the 7, but we want to teach the concept on the 3 and retest them on those 3 so that they get the concept and they improve in their schoolwork. And that's pretty much, I appreciate all that they're doing because we're a team, because what they do affects what we do over here, because it's like we're handing off the baton. Okay, it's your turn, take them. And, you know, we talk about our kids that have gaps, and if we don't improve those gaps each year, then when it gets to me, the gap's now here. When it's it gets from pre-K to 3, the gap, if he sends it off a gap, then from 3 to 5 or 4 to 5, then it's even bigger. And then when it gets 6, 7, 8, it's bigger. Then when it gets to me, it's an enormous gap that we have to close. And so I appreciate what they're doing at the lower levels, because I can see that we're all on the same page. And as you can see, there's a rhyme and a reason what we're doing, and there's a common thread that we need to do what's best for our kids. Thank you for this opportunity.
No, yeah, okay, so.
Well, I want to say thank y'all, because one thing every one of y'all said, it's like South is working with North, and North is working, and I don't think we've had that in the past.
We have not.
It's like we're South, we're North, we're whatever, and all the way, and just you said it perfectly. So thank y'all, because that's that's a big, win for you guys, because in the past it hasn't been that way. And how are we ever going to get better if we don't work together? So thank you. I appreciate it.
My question, yes, thank y'all. Well, my question. So I guess help me understand when it comes to, and I know some of y'all have only been at this campus for 1 year, so I'm just kind of wanting to understand y'all's vision behind. So when we're doing grading, walkthroughs, small groups, that is so many areas to cover. How are we making sure it's getting done? Like, how are we making sure these teachers are, let's just say, posted grades, or every teacher is doing a small group? How are we making sure that that small group, the interventionist, is communicating with the teacher to say, this student in your class, or how do y'all work with each other as far as accountability and making sure everything that we're saying is getting done? It almost sounds impossible. So, like, how does that work?
And it almost is impossible. Right. But and I'm going to let y'all answer that. But 99% of it is being vigilant and being out in the classrooms all the time. And I'll let y'all roll with that.
I think too, just like, you don't tell the teacher when you're coming in, so just knowing that you could pop in at any time during the day helps put that sense of pressure on. I don't want to say pressure, but what is it, the word that I'm looking for?
Because you're dead, right?
A pressure, I guess, a good, healthy pressure that, hey, they could come in here, and so, and for me, I don't, like, if I go to your class in the morning, I'm not going to go to your class tomorrow morning and the next morning. I'm going to change it up. And then it is hard, but if you're expecting it, you find the time to do it. So there's times, like, I don't think any of us go home and not work. Right. So there's times at night that we're inspecting what we expect. So a lot of that stuff that's not happening at school during the school days happening at home at night. So, like, I'll be honest, on lesson plan checks, I know they're due Monday at 8, but on Sunday I'm already checking them to see who's got theirs done. And so Monday morning, whoever didn't do them, I know I just need to go in and check those. And the same with grades. I go in and look at grades. If they're not getting it done, I know they are supposed to have their grade posted Monday by 6. I'm going to be checking Monday at 6. And you also use your people. So, like, for my campus, Miss Cummings, hey, Miss Cummings, I need you to check grades. Or I have my registrar that can do it. Hey, Jen, can you look at grades for me? And trusting them that they know how to do what they need to do, and just delegate. Sometimes you have to.
Well, and, Ms. Martinez, one thing I will tell you, I think our teachers, because you said some of them have been at the campus 1 year, 2 years, 1 year, 1 year, 1 year. Mm-hmm. Some of our teachers that I told y'all we're at that point where some of those behaviors, some of them are like, well, I'm going to ride this principal out. They're going to have a new one next year. I mean, and that ain't going to happen.
Right.
And they're all going to be back. And I'm going to be sitting right here pushing the same thing. And the old saying is they're either going to have to get on the bus or the bus is going to leave them behind. And that's kind of where we're at with that. And they also, by this point, know their people. And so they know which rooms they might need to stop by a little bit more, because they know who's on board and who's trying to fight growth.
I was going to say, it's literally a collective team effort. In my AP's office, we have a poster that's up, and we mark whose room we've been into. So if I haven't made it, she knows to go to. Also, that's another thing with the new program. It tells you exactly when the last time that classroom had been hit. So the numbers that we're doing, we're going to be in the same classroom multiple times a week. As far as lesson plans, that's the first thing we do after greeting kids on Monday morning. We're in our office checking plans. We're like, okay, what'd you have this week? What'd you have? Let's go talk. Let's go figure out what's going on. And that's increased, as in we're not having to talk to teachers about lesson plans, but we communicate those expectations also through our leadership team meetings, which have a rep from on our campus, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, RLA, math, and science. So everybody's represented. That the expectation goes out weekly in your communications. Like, nobody is unaware of what the mission is right now. Yeah. So it's all hands on deck. So it actually it's able to be done because it's a team effort. That's how it works.
And I want to tag team on that too, explaining the why behind it. So like I'm really big on, I tell the teachers why they need to do it, because if you just tell them, then it just looks like a blanket expectation. Right. And they know they're smart, they're educated, but sometimes just hearing the why reminds them. You know, just like the I will, we will, you know, I guess for a long time they weren't required to put it on the board, or 1 year they were and 1 year they're not, because I think my campus went through 7 principals each year. I don't know. I mean, they had a lot of change over the last few years. So last year I really had that struggle with it, but then I think building the relationship with the teacher helps too, because once they want to please us as well, you know, and I think that plays a big part. But explaining why they need to have the I will, we will, going back to that, once they see, oh, okay, it could help me. Because what do kids do when they walk in your class every day? What are we doing today, miss? What are we going to do? Well, they can see it there.
And it used to be written as, because if you look at the TEKS, they're worded in the sense that a 6th grader is going to walk in, he can read it, and he's still going to not know a clue. So one of the things we've changed is we want it written. That's why we do the I will, we will, in terms that a 3rd grader can walk in and he can read it, and he can be like, okay, I know what I got to get done today.
And like for me, I had a whole PLC on with the teachers on how to write an effective I will, we will statement, because it has to, like you said, be kid friendly. And some of the teachers, it sounds like hard, I guess. They were making it harder than what it had to be, but we said just look at the verb and what's the expectation of the skill they're supposed to learn, and put it in a sentence that they're going to understand. And so we practiced it. And just like with the exit tickets, Israel and I did our PD together. You know, practicing the things you expect, showing them how to do it, because some of our teachers, they haven't gone through a teacher program.
It is new.
And I know what that feels like. I went in and taught, and I was thrown in a classroom. I didn't know how to write a lesson plan, and nobody showed me, but I had to figure it out. So I think taking the extra time and showing them, and then Ms. Ballman's amazing at working with her team to help coach our teachers up. That's something that a lot of school districts don't have. When I came here, I was really, really impressed that we had that. Every campus had an instructional coordinator, because you don't find that often.
Do you get a lot of feedback, like from your teachers after walkthroughs, like say y'all gave like constructive criticism to a teacher? Do y'all get like feedback as in how you went in, taught her, and how she got better? Do you go back in? Like how many walkthroughs do you do?
It depends on the need of the teacher. So like on our campus, we have a couple brand new teachers. And I'm going to talk on one in particular. She was really struggling with teaching and going. She felt overwhelmed, like, okay, we got to answer all these questions, and I only have 45 minutes to answer all these questions. So she started like missing some steps, right? And so we went in and we evaluated her, and then we taught a lesson for her, one period, and then the next period she got to teach it. And so if we saw that she still was struggling, then you come in and you teach again, let her watch, and then teach. And that might take several times, but now, I mean, she's killing it, y'all, because we took that. And it wasn't just us doing it, pulling in another teacher that's really great and letting her see different types of teaching. And I've been taking some of our teachers on learning walks, is what I call them, so they can go observe other teachers. And that's really beneficial, because they can pick up on things that they want to try, or things that they're like, that would not work for me.
And you have to change a teacher that comes to La Mesa is not going to be used to the amount of time administrators are in their room. And so the first thing they think is they're trying to catch me. They're trying to get me. And we're trying to change that, where they understand it is a form of support. Because the main reason we will lose teachers is because they do not feel supported. They're put into a classroom and say, good luck. And you get teachers after a little while that will get the report from their walkthrough, and they'll come tell you, oh, no. You said I didn't ask a level 2 question? Well, this is the one I asked. Tell me that's not a level 2 question. And they'll come challenge you. And that's where we're trying to get those conversations where they're like that.
Awesome. Thank y'all.
I have a couple questions.
Should all yours.
Okay. Just so y'all can track your walkthroughs.
Yes.
Correct? So you would know how many walkthroughs at each campus by December 31st of 2023.
Well, we will now. There was not a way. It was informal, almost per campus, if that makes sense.
They're not inputted anywhere?
Now they are.
Like we did a Google form, and so we have data that shows that. Now we have one district-wide where everybody can.
Each campus had a form, but now we have one that we can all look at. Everybody.
Like I had a paper-based one, and I shared it with Israel, and it was based off what was on the formative assessment when we did like a formal walkthrough. So every time I went in, I could kind of check mark real quick on the paper, and I had a section for notes of what I see and stuff like that.
We've operated
digitally.
One of them. I think it was one of y'all said that every one of them has the paper in their room where they do weekly. But we've operated almost like off of a homemade Google Doc system where they were entering it and we were able to track it. But it took some work on the viewer's part, and now we can. I mean, Bauman, do you want to talk about the program at all?
And I mean, I guess I've been here long enough and been through enough programs that this one had a lot of things that were what we needed. So what we had used last semester, we had our Google Doc, we would go in, but it would give nothing to the teacher. It was just for us to track so that we could see. And then, we'd have to figure our percentages and do all of that. This program will eventually, and like we've only been using it like 2 weeks-ish, it tracks how many walkthroughs this teacher has had. You have your homepage, and it'll say, it'll color code them. This person has had walkthroughs 0 days ago, 1 day ago. Then after so many days, if you haven't hit, just on glance, they'll turn yellow. It's been 7 days since this person had somebody. Or red, it's been 10 days. It has action steps in there. Like they say, we can take pictures, we can put it in. But then there's certain questions and look-fors that we had decided on. Teacher location, objective, is it posted, does it align? And so it will pull and it'll say, okay, you've done this many walkthroughs in this week, 75% of your teachers were in the power zone. Or 25% of your teachers were asking this or whatever. So it's able to see the trends in an easier way than what we can. And then Christy talked about how she had her goals in. Their T-test goals will go in that, and we can attach action steps from one of the things we use is the Get Better Faster waterfall where it talks about management or rigor. All of that's also in there. And so you can, let's say one of the CICs goes through, they see this, and this, and they do an action step. If it's on Melanie's campus, Melanie will see what everybody else has done. And it holds everything together, which what we had in the past, it would hold something here, hold something here. You might not be able to see what you were doing. This just put it all in one place.
Right. I mean, okay, but like I understand that where it talks about where you know what everybody else is doing. But like if say I came to you or came to Mr. Ritchie or came to somebody and said, how many walkthroughs have middle school had?
Yeah.
As of from September day 1 to December 31st.
We started using this last week. We've already had over, I think, 180 walkthroughs last week and this week. And I can break it down by campus, and I can break it down by who's walking through. So how many has Melanie had, how many has Christy had, how many have I had. And so it'll do a frequency distribution of who's doing them, whose room it's in, what campus it's on, all of that as well.
But prior to starting to use this,
there's
no way to.
We can. We've got it in a Google Sheet.
No, prior to this.
No, that's what we're saying. We have it in a Google Sheet.
Okay.
So I have
that we've always used
August,
this
September, October.
Google Sheet. We just got this because the Google Sheet was scattered.
Everywhere.
Yes.
But we could know how many walkthroughs.
Yes.
Walkthroughs were done the first semester at each campus.
100%.
So like we have
not just principals, by everybody.
We have a QR code that pulls in. The CICs have it. We all have it, and it would go to one Google form. And so we've got that back to August.
Okay. I guess for me, what would be like the main, like when you walk into a walkthrough, you're talking about what you look for while going. So I just thought, what would be like just the main priority the first thing you walk into a classroom? Is it going to be based on the experience of the teacher, or? I think,
and I'm going to let them all talk. I think we all are probably geared to look for different things. I look for where my teacher's at, and I look before I ever go in the room, because if I go in the room first, they're going to get up. I look in the window because I want to know, are they sitting down or are they up around the students? That's what I look for first. Then once I get in there, I look for other things. But that's the main thing I'm looking for.
Yeah, I agree. I do the same thing. And then a lot, what we're talking about, those structured communication meetings that we have on Mondays, we're sitting down with me, and this might help also answer your question, Ms. Martinez, on how do we get this all done. Well, it's me, it's the AP, and it's the CICs. So there's 4 people in this meeting. We have already got a plan on what we know what we're looking for that week, what the teachers should be teaching there in that time. And it also depends on the time period we're going in. If we're going in during an ELAR or math time, we're looking for them to be hitting the curriculum that is in the lesson plan and making sure it matches the Tier 1 instruction. If I go in during computer time, I'm looking to making sure the kids are doing the computer program we have in place, and I'm making sure that time is where we should be pulling small groups. So I'm going to be making sure and checking to see if we are intentionally pulling those small groups so those teachers are working and we are getting that Tier 2 intervention taking place. So it kind of varies, but specifically if I was just to walk in, yes, power zone, are we in the power zone? Are we at our desk? Where are we located? Does everything look natural? Are we hitting the objective that's posted on the board? I should know with intention of what that objective is. Another thing that we do that I think is really good that me and Ballman have done, I'm sure she's done it with the others, is we calibrate our walkthroughs. So me and Miss Ballman will go into 4 or 5 classrooms and we'll go in and we'll watch. Well, she's got her tracker with our new system, and we had a checklist at first, but now we do it on our new system. And so I'll do it, she'll do it, we'll walk out of the classroom, and then we'll talk about that classroom, and we'll compare our notes. Are we calibrated? Are we seeing the same thing? And that's a really good training tool for us to make sure we're seeing the same thing. And I think that's going to help also when it comes to looking at how it's going to be pretty much an even score on how we're looking at observations. So I hope that helps.
So y'all do like, I didn't know, y'all do like dual.
Absolutely.
Stuff,
yeah. We do them for sure every Friday, and then they do them throughout the week. But we meet every Friday on the campus as a group.
Okay.
So our elementary's been going to, we do north and south, they'll go to one, and then y'all don't know that next week we're all 4 going to one campus. We just haven't set the time out yet. But we
just so
every
you
Friday.
can see the same lesson being taught at the same time.
Well,
and talking the same
sometimes
language. It's kind of like the academic language y'all spoke of. We want to make sure we're speaking the same language.
Do you think the next time we go to walkthroughs, like as a board, that y'all could show us?
Yeah, we can show them the program. We only have so many licenses on the program, but we can look over shoulder. Yeah, but or you can look over our shoulder and look at it.
Yeah, I mean, just to see what it looks like.
Absolutely.
And we were able to completely customize this to how we wanted. So after we've worked with Ted Moore and he comes in and he talks, there were 4 things that we really wanted. And we're like, okay, we're looking for student engagement. So we got down and we're like, what does that even look like? I can say they're engaged, but what am I looking for? So we did the old school looks like, sounds like charts, and what is it going to look like when we're looking for this? What should alignment look like? What should we hear? What should we see? And so we have some look-fors already identified that everybody goes in and looks for, and then you can make notes in it as well.
So like when y'all link up say y'all 3 go into one class, and if y'all I guess they go into this program and they link up. Is the computer or the program or the AI type technology, is it available to help see some things maybe that y'all didn't see?
Kind of disseminate it a little bit. Yes, sir.
Okay, this is what y'all need. This is some highlights and here's some positives and negatives. Maybe at that level?
I don't know that it's. I think it classifies it like that. I don't know if it'll literally classify it like, hey, he needs to work on this. But I think that through the way it disseminates, we will be able to see.
So it is.
Yes.
That technology to.
It's tied to the Get Better Faster, which is it's a very research based on how to help teachers. And so the waterfall is programmed in there. So let's say it identifies that this teacher's having trouble with rigor. It's going to pull up 10 million different things that you can do
to help that
say
teacher.
Start at rigor 1. Do they have this? Go down. Do they have this? And so it'll help you identify where it is. And then there's action steps that'll help you help them.
So if a teacher comes back to you and says, hey, I did do this or I did this, and they show you, do you go back to that walkthrough and fix it
that doesn't mean they're right.
Well, but then you might be getting
I mean,
false,
but
misleading information that.
But if you're doing the amount of walkthroughs you should,
Right.
that one remark isn't going to offset,
Okay.
you know, the
I just think the
bulk
computer
of it.
thing.
Now, on the old one, I would. It was
Yeah.
Shannon and Gary. I mean, Shannon and Gary, if you walked in her room and you marked one thing wrong, she was going to be in your office telling you, no, you did not see that right. And I would. I'd get in and be like, you know what,
One
you're
of the
right.
things
I'd go
that-
back in and change it.
This will stores meeting notes. So if the teacher comes in and says, yes, I did, they bring their evidence. I can upload their evidence and say, check, that action step's taken care of. Let's go on to something else.
And that's
It'll
one
put
of
all of that in there.
my favorite parts is this one, and we've never had it. You can take pictures. We were in Autumn Shaw's room on last week. I don't know what day it was. It was awesome what they were doing. And, I mean, I was literally able to take a picture of student work and upload it to her walkthrough so that we can always reference. Instead of just reading it, we can go back like, oh, yeah, that's what she was doing.
It'll also let us kind of create a library of exemplar teachers. So I know there was one at middle school the other day during their tea time. It showed he was pulling a small group, how he was managing, so we were able to video it, and we can start a library where if a teacher's like, I don't know how this works, and they don't have the, we can't get it over, you can't go watch, you can watch this video clip and see snippets of it.
Okay.
So on the observations, and like if it's certain ones that go, when they upload that information, does it have each one's comments, or is it overall y'all put it together and that was the walkthrough for the day for that teacher?
Like we go multiple times?
No. I mean, like when y'all
Like
go,
in our group, she said.
Depending on the group, and y'all upload that information, and I guess until you show us what it looks like, is there like comments from each person that was there, or is it y'all get together overall?
Like if I was doing, like if we all went in Frankie's room and we were all doing it,
Yeah.
he'd get all
Okay.
separate. They would all be independent
That's what
looks,
I was
but he'd
wondering.
get all
No,
of
who
them.
So does that
did-
count
who
as
did
4
what?
walkthroughs or 1?
Well, it would count on
The campus. I mean,
4, but it would only count on 1 for Richie.
right. But I mean,
But that would be 4 on Frankie because 4 people were in his room. Yeah.
It also allows you to give specific feedback to the teacher and then feedback or just notes that are administrator only. So if you're tracking something, you can communicate that as well or have direct notes back to the teacher.
4 walkthroughs on that employee, not on.
Not on the person.
Not on the person.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
Gotcha.
So if I may just speak a little more for what I think, because I think we're all getting middle. The deal is that through our leader, our instructor leader, Mr. Ritchie, we've been tasked for each of us to have 25 walkthroughs a week. We're supposed to do that. And so what they're going to get is they're going to get 25 teachers. I'm going to get teachers, and they may get 10, 15 that week, depending on how many times I go in the classroom. But I'm going to do 25, and they're going to get all the data that I do. Now, if Miss Bauman comes in to my campus that same week, they're going to get the same information that she's going to give her walkthroughs and what she's getting.
And like I've made, like that rule goes for me too. And I mean, and like I told him, if I'm asking them to get them, I'm going to get them. And he's not going to know I got them. So I may be hitting the teacher. He may have just hit a teacher, but now I can see, Carrera was just in here. Let's be smart,
Yeah.
But I think it's a culture that we're creating. And so the leader's creating that culture. So I know I have to do, if I don't get 5 a day, then that means the next day I'm going to have to get a little more than to get. And it's not something, it's just something that I know I got to be doing. And then it's intentional. And so you talk to your question, Ms. Martinez, the way we do that stuff is, number 1, we're intentional. Number 2, we inspect what we expect. And number 3, we direct and honest feedback. And I believe for my campus, and I'm sure for their campus, is that the teachers want that. It's like they're hungry. I don't know if y'all have seen that, but at my campus, they're hungry. They come and tell me, Miss Kerr, what am I doing wrong? What do I need to do? I haven't had anybody challenge, say, well, you didn't see that, or you didn't. They want to. And I tell them, I'm learning alongside of you, because if I knew everything, I'd just come and do some training because I'm an expert. And then I'd do your district, go to another district. I said, so we're in this together. So if you're not performing well, that's on me, because I'm the leader and I'm supposed to be teaching you. And I tell my teachers, I'm not here to catch you. I'm here to help you on the things that I think we can get better, and I know you can get better. And I think I think it's a tool that they're used to, or not used to, but they're ready to. They're hungry.
They're getting used to it.
I do think the I mean, I didn't know, but I think the video and all that, I think that can be used real
100%.
well. Like you have an exceptional teacher and you have one that's struggling. I mean, they can watch that lesson and say, and it might click with them.
And I'm going to say they do like it because when I do my T-test evaluations, I go in and I tell them that I'm going to record it. And so it's beneficial. So like when we have our post-conference meeting, I tell them, is there anything you want to see? Do you want to see your video? I make it available to them. And it's been really neat. Like this year we had a teacher that, she didn't realize she had student-led learning happening, and it was beautiful, y'all, because that's the distinguished area. And for her to see it and her face light up to see that, hey, this was happening in my class, and I didn't even realize that was happening, because at first she was kind of like, oh my gosh, this is going to hurt me because this wasn't part of the plan, and to see it and say, hey, you created an environment where kids felt safe to take the initiative to their learning. And then too, like sometimes they'll look at the video and they'll say, I could have done this better.
It's just like watching game.
And it's like Israel said, our teachers are hungry for that feedback. And what we've had is teachers come and say, hey, next time you walk through, will you see if I'm doing this really good? And so they're asking for specific feedback that may not be what we're going in to look for, but they're wanting that feedback.
And that was one of the
You
biggest
can build
things
you a
that's
library.
missing.
And that's the goal. Yes, sir.
And
a library
That's
for
the
down
goal.
the road for training.
And them coming to y'all, it says a lot about y'all and y'all's leadership. And just like Melissa said, that's something that we have not had in Lamesa. So y'all are very
Well, one thing they've done really good at that we've always wanted to do and we've just never done it is when they've had struggling teachers, they do. We take the time, we get their class covered, and we take them to watch someone good because that's the best teacher.
For sure.
Is to see someone else doing what you need to be able to do. And they've all done it, and it's helped out greatly.
And when you invest in them, they see their value. And that's just at the end of the day, they bring a lot of value.
Yes.
Okay, like on your walkthrough, or I'm sorry, but on your curriculum, y'all want them to teach the written for the testing, right? Or not teach down here, you're saying. What is your tolerance? Like, say, one time I could see going, okay, you're off track, you're not going this
See, but off track is different. Off track to me means
off track like you're teaching down here.
well, they've been doing it since the beginning of Misa opening the doors.
Right.
So it ain't something that we snap our fingers. The biggest way we're trying to do is through these. You've heard them all say Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 questioning. That's why when we're going into rooms, we're listening to what is the teacher asking of them. Are they saying, hey, what's 2 plus 2? Or are they making the students actually think and hypothesize and analyze and create what they're trying to do? So to say that we tolerate, we are trying to coach it out of it. So in a year or 2 years, we'll be a whole lot more impatient. But right now, this is...
It's like
We've got teachers that have been here for 15 years and they've never had to do this.
So when you talk about academic language, you're saying use the language that when they read a problem or read something on STAR or in the classroom in a book, use, like you said, variable for a letter
or say metaphor and simile,
or something like that.
know.
But don't just say this letter.
Instead of saying, what's the difference between this, saying, okay, you're going to compare and contrast, because that's the terminology that's going to be on the test. Or you need to analyze this paragraph instead of, hey, just what happened in the story. Analyze what happened in the story and then communicate that. So using that academic language that you're going to see on the STAR, because they might know how to do it, but if they're not familiar to that academic language, they're going to see that word, and it's going to completely throw them off. It doesn't mean they don't know. It just means that we haven't used the academic language in the class.
So when they do say it'll be just...
That's the goal.
Yeah. So instead of saying, guess what the character was feeling, you're going to say, I want you to make an inference on what the character would be feeling. Because inference is what they're going to see in the STAR test. And then just like the variable thing, I was in Coach Arguelles' class and the kid was saying, well, you put the letter X, and he asked him, well, does it always have to be an X? And it's a variable, and he goes, so what other variable could we put there? And then he was waiting for the student to say any letter, because it doesn't have to necessarily be X. It could be A, it could be C, it could be whatever, but it's a variable. So the variable could be any letter. And he goes, we need to make sure, we're using the word variable because when we're taking our quiz, it's going to say variable, not letter.
One other thing that we're doing, and again, it's in the beginning stages, is this new STAR test asks for kids to write a lot more than it's ever, not just the one big essay at the end. There's short answer responses throughout the whole thing. So we're starting from little kid to big kid, teaching them how to do it all the same way. I'm assuming y'all got race, yes. Right? All up in. Tell them what race stands for.
Restate the question. Answer the question.
Cite.
And explain your answer.
And if they'll do that, if they start doing that in second grade and third grade and fourth grade, by the time they get, like Carrera said, by the time they get to him, he's going to reap the benefits of everything they've instilled in him.
And that's something with the CICs, with the way they're structured now, because when we do our CIC meetings, sometimes it'll just be like my 2 ELAR people that come in. So our elementary and secondary, they'll come down and they'll look just ELAR. Or math will come in, which math is kind of harder because it doesn't flow as well. But that's when they came and they said, what strategy do we want to use? We want to use race. How do we make that appropriate at each level? And so that, I think, has been good because they've been able to travel back and forth and make sure that the connection flows all the way through.
And I witnessed it last year with the junior kid. I mean, handed out the STAR test and had a blank piece of paper, and the first thing he did was write RACE. So he would remember what to do every time he had those questions.
And also making them intentional with their strategies. We've really worked on that, making sure all their strategies they can be across the board. And you're not giving them too many because you can kill them with too many strategies, where they don't know which one to use. So use the best strategy that's going to get them what they need.
Last thing, and this goes to planning for this next year and setting the schedule and just some discussion. I know we have remote days this year and we have professional development days this year. So remote days, the way I understand it, tell me if I'm misunderstanding, if a parent or something needs to be addressed with the teacher, they need to be available at some point.
Oh, 100%, yeah. And she put an email out today because we got meetings lined up throughout the day. If you're not available, you got to take a day. But let me preface it by saying this: those aren't going to exist next year. So
I was just going to ask you, are you seeing remote days as prosperous in like advancing your teachers as a professional development day, or would you rather have a remote day as a professional development where you have your teachers in for training? I mean, because they're two different things.
And again, if we're talking about current, because like I said,
right.
You have to have PD days. You have to have 4 PD days in a year, right? So those will never go away. Next year, we're not going to have remote days. But for the current time, there was one remote day that I thought was pretty unproductive, and we had to talk with all the teachers about it. But other than that, I do feel, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, good does happen. Has it made a fan of me? Because, again, the reason we did it was more for teacher comfort. Guilty. Has it made me want to go to a 4-day week or do it again? It has not. Do I feel like we've gotten good out of them? 75% yes, 25% no.
I think once we started planning for them better, they've become more productive. And so we just set deadlines on those days for things that we're working on or collaborations that we're working on. So they have the time to do those things. Or like we have a marathon art day coming up, and so our teachers will use tomorrow to make sure that they've got all their PLAFs, their paperwork stuff ready and prepared to go. Lesson plans will already be done. We've got things that there will be, parent conference schedules coming up, yes. So things that we have to accomplish on those remote days.
And you require them to submit what they're doing to you, so then we're verifying what we trusted them to do.
And I'll say, like, for special ed, like she was saying, we have marathon art days. During PD days, when we have to do PD during those days, the teachers aren't having time to do that. So I would have to get a sub for that teacher for that day because they might have 20 arts coming up in the next 2 weeks. And so they're not having time to get all that information from the teachers and sit down and write that goals and all the class and goals. And it takes a lot of time for them. So I know we're not having them next year, but it was very beneficial for some of our teachers to have that time to go in, and if they could not have a sub that day and be away from the kids, they could actually have that day to have it all done. And if they didn't, I was like, okay, why is this not done? You had the whole day to do it. So that first one was a very good learning curve for us to say, if they came back and they're like, I didn't have time to do that. I'm like, you had a remote day. So tell me what you did during that.
Yeah, so, I mean, ultimately, if you look at it from the big picture, do I think it was founded in the right reasoning? I do. Do I think the first one kicked butt. I think human nature took over and they started to take advantage of them a little. I think we got them back focused again. But looking forward into my future, would I do it again? Not to this extent. Maybe one a semester.
That's what I say.
100%.
We're limited and strategic as far as
100%.
Looking at it. I mean, that's just testing. I will say, I do like when y'all come in and do the okay, here's what's going on our campus and informative, yes. But I think I've learned more tonight, especially to walk through technology. That's something I would think.
Well, what I'm gonna ask them to start adding, because I do think it's important y'all know the events, but like when we have testing coming up, not STAR testing, y'all all know what STAR testing is, but when we're having MAP testing come up, I think y'all probably like to hear, okay, so what exactly is that? Yeah, we hear y'all say that all the time. What's that look like for a fourth grader? Yeah. And they can kind of be a little more specific on some of that stuff.
And also more, I'm sorry, go ahead.
If we're using the technology like that, I think that does nothing but advance to help our teachers be better. And I think they'll get more confident.
I agree.
Especially
the youngins.
We've been
if you
really
can collaborate
intentional with our
together.
PDs too, and I like how we've done peer PDs, I guess is what you'd call it, where our teachers are actually putting on some of the PD too. So they're learning from people they work with versus somebody they don't know, because they're more accepting. If we're giving a PD, sometimes they think we forget what it's like to be in the classroom. But if they're hearing it from a colleague, and the colleagues doing it, they're more, eager to get more involved in it, I guess,
It's like everything we've said tonight, it's just a complete culture shift that is still in its very early stages.
I just got to say, I've done nothing but listen tonight, and I'm blown away. Because, I just, hearing y'all talk and hearing you talk about what you've got going on at your campuses, and just everything in general. I don't see how this isn't going to come out good.
I believe we'll be sitting here in a few years very proud of the work that's been that has happened. I do.
I'm glad we're not looking at another turnover.
You couldn't pay me enough to do what y'all do.
I think as a board, we've all expressed we want, no, we don't want a lot of change, especially at the administration level campuses, because we've seen what it does. It's not good, especially, I'll use South. There's kids that are third grade now that had a new principal every year.
So has North. So has high school.
Pretty sure up to sixth grade, there's a group that every year they've hit.
Like you're not going to be successful. There's just no way you're going to be successful if that. You're going to have to change sometimes.
I just was looking at the Taper report online, and I've looked at it all this week. Like looking at that 8th grade class, is that just one of those classes that had a lot of parent involvement too?
No, because remember, you're really looking at two different classes. I think it's a compliment to that 8th grade staff.
Okay.
And that is one reason.
We have a stellar 8th grade group.
And she doesn't even know why we're having a meeting on Tuesday morning at 7 o'clock because we have a vision that I think is almost too much for our whole district to consume. And so I told Bauman, let's pick one group. And let's visit with them, and let's turn them loose. And she said, that 8th grade group, that's a strong group. So we're about to push them a little further.
But I'm going to tell you what makes them strong is they collaborate. Even though they teach different things, obviously, they really work together. They talk about their kids. They've found things that works for kids, and they share that. It's not about being the better teacher in 8th grade, they're helping each other out. And I think that's what makes a huge difference is they're taking the initiative to do what's best for the kids.
And I would also
What's the
say,
average tenure in 8th grade teacher?
well,
We have one that's been there 15 years.
yeah, and then one that's taught for a while. Crusher came from Lubbock.
Yeah, she's taught for a while. She's amazing. And then one, 4 years, and then this will be the 2nd year.
What I would say is there's a lesson to be learned by all of the other grade levels. They are 100% on board with where we want to go. They don't question a thing. They are excited.
They'll ask you how to do it. How do you want
They may want to know why, but we tell them why because they need to know that. But they know we're doing what's best for these kids, and they are all in. And you see it every day.
One of the rooms in that group, I guess last week, and he was like, okay, let me tell you what's going on. He was like, we did this yesterday. They didn't all get it, but if I don't get this fixed now, tomorrow it's not going to happen. He's like, so what I've done, I've made my slides, I've videoed a lesson so the ones that got it can go ahead and do that, get ready to go on while I work. I mean, like, they're not worried about the 8 to 4 o'clock. Putting in so much more because he knew it's what the kids needed. And so you watched, and he had his group over here that he was working with. This group was like, okay, we're done. He's like, go to slide 2. They went, they did it, and they're working. And he's got his computer over here with the dyno or whatever it is, and he can see, are you really working? Are you not? And so he's able to monitor all of them while he's working with this group. It was really cool to see.
It's what it was cool to see, but it's what I think we will see in, again, a year to 2 everywhere we go.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank y'all so much for all this hard work. And I just want to say, just like everyone else said, y'all done a great job. I'm just sitting here like Kevin, just taking it all in. Every question that I had when y'all came up here, it was answered. It was just like, okay, I don't have to ask it now. So, thank you. We really appreciate everything you do.
Now you get to listen to me.
Yes, Superintendent. All right, hurry up.
I will. I'll be quick.
Yeah, 5 minutes. My iPad battery is dying, and it was simple when I got here.
All right, enrollment, and I'm going to start doing this visually, so you can kind of see it. But we dropped 3 students. We were at 1523. I think one campus went up a little, one campus went down, but we're still hovering in that same spot. I do want to go through realignment. I know you've all seen it. We met with UIL yesterday, and one of the things that they addressed was 14 districts. They don't like them. Geographically, there's just no way around them sometimes. And
What
so,
about the 3-team district now?
do what?
The 3-team.
Agreed, because one of them decided not to
I
play.
almost thought that they might come back and throw those 3 and 4 and make one district.
They did say that those that are in a 14 district this time they'll try to keep out of a 14 district next time. But you can go through them. The other thing they talked about, football is the one that's always been divided into 2 divisions. You've got the big school, little school. No other sport has done that. They're looking at a format that does it for all other back. But what they would do is not realign you. They would let you play your district out, and then the top 4 go, and the 2 biggest schools go to one division, the 2 smallest schools go to another division, and then they play that bracket. So that's something that they're going to look at. Kind of talked about all those things. They talked about officials still having a hard time retaining them, and it's still a task that they're asking communities, not schools, communities to, because they will tell you the biggest place they run officials off is in middle school basketball. He flat out said it. He said that is the spot we lose most officials is because the way they are treated during middle school basketball games by fans and coaches. And it's just a constant. We have to remind our people that, yes, you may not agree with them, but how you talk to them does matter. Heat policy changes, that's a big thing to me because as an ex-coach, I used to not worry about it. It's kind of like concussions were big. Now heat is big too because, guys, it gets hotter and hotter and hotter every summer. And so what they've gone to is this. It's pretty interesting. Wet bulb globe temperature, that's what NCAA and NFL uses. And basically it takes all those things into a factor. Instead of just being the temp, it takes all those into a factor. And that's the chart that they're probably going to put in. Now you see that Fahrenheit. That Fahrenheit is not the temperature. That is the wet bulb globe temperature. So basically add, if it's 82 degrees, they said typically 82 degrees on this chart translates to about 105. All right, so they're really trying to make sure that they put regulations in because unfortunately, coaches don't always use common sense. And they take them out there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and that's why you read on the news of kids passing out, kids having heat strokes. It's something they've asked us to help because they tell you guys, y'all are going to have in-service. Keep your kids in mind. If you got to let your guys go practice in the morning and have in-service later in the day, do it. Find a way to help your kids not overheat all the time, you know. Legislative overview, I do want to talk about that because it's important. Because here's the deal. 84 people voted against vouchers, and if you think that's not what his goal is, you're wrong. What they have told us is, y'all think financial and public schools are hard right now. It's only going to get harder. All right? So, of those 84, 21 of them were Republicans. 5 of those aren't running anymore. That leaves 16 Republicans that he is trying to get out. Because if he can switch the Republicans, he gets his vote. He gets vouchers. And then funding changes forever. And so the primary elections happen. And I'm going to go through these numbers real quick because I thought this was amazing. There's 20 million registered voters in the United States. Of those 20 million, 17 million actually vote. Of those 17, 9 million, no, rewind. 20 million that are age to vote, 17 million registered, 9 million actually vote. In the primaries, less than 1 million people vote. And they tell you primaries are where the elections are won and lost. And that's why they don't want to advertise primaries, so they can get the right people on the ballot. And so I'm just encouraging you, get out and vote. Get out and vote. Construction update. Concrete, we met with them last week. They're very frustrated because they got to fix it. And they don't want to fix it. And they were blaming COVID, and they were blaming supplies, and they were blaming this and that. But ultimately, all they were doing is they're upset. The concrete company is upset because it's about to cost them a lot of money to fix something that was not done right the first time. And the leaks are better. The day that we had the snow, I came up, me and Ray were up there at the gym. One side they fixed, the other side they still haven't fixed, but the leaks are getting better. That's to say everything's still getting fixed. It's just a process, and we'll get it there. I did want to look at this. What I tasked these guys with, I typed up a leadership application and sent it to them, and they sent it to their staffs because I want to help grow leaders in our district, and there's a group of other superintendents, and we've put this together, West Texas Leadership Academy, and I have each of them picking 1 to 2 people out of the application that we're going to be able to send to hopefully start not just growing our own teachers, but I want to grow our own APs, principals, CICs, and I'm excited about that. Have y'all told have y'all told the people, or have y'all just told me? Okay. Tomorrow I'm going to tell the ones that we're picking for that. I know Mr. Mann was asking about that. We've got the girls playing in Amarillo tomorrow night, and then the boys will play the winner of Alpine and Presidio Friday night. And then the last thing, guys, well, before the last thing, we do need to move, if you're okay with this, the March board meeting to the 28th, so it's not in the spring break. That's been historically what the board has done, is move it to that next one. Last thing, and I'm proud of this. I know y'all are tired, so y'all aren't going to be near as excited as y'all would have if it had not been this long. But I had an idea a while back to be different. Imagine that. And I just wanted to, I wanted to have a way for anybody interested in Lamesa ISD to always, at any time of day, any time of night, be able to get that information. And so we finally got it done today. But if you go to our website, and you'll see it at the top, the Golden Tornado Hotline, employment and enrollment information, 1-888-763-TORNADO Legion, join now. And it goes to 1-888-763-8556. I'd encourage you to call that number. It'll make your day. Okay? And all it is information. If you are interested, if we meet you at a job fair and you go home and you're like, you know what, I'm going to look into that, you can call that number. If you're a parent that moves to town and it's Sunday and you're worried about what papers do I need for enrollment, where's my kid going to go, it tells you on this hotline. It's just a place that anybody can call at any point in time to get some information on how to become a part of the Golden Tornado family. I blew through that, y'all, and I think that's all I have. Y'all have any questions for me? And I do hope y'all call it. Y'all be the first.
I want to do it like right now.
Thank y'all.
Do you have the number memorized?
Yes, ma'am. Well, we had 3 free toll-free numbers, and I was given, and so I had to make something work. So at first it was Tornado Love join now. And then somebody said, they said, Richie, you sound like one of those bad numbers. so I switched. But it's something no other, I've never seen a school do it, and I think it's going to pay dividends. I think it's cool. Yeah.
Okay. I guess now we'll go to board action items. We have deliberation and possible action to approve Paula Simcoe, C.G. Vasquez, Sandy Trevino as election judges.
Make a motion to approve as presented. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. And we'll go into executive session.
We are going?
Yes. We are going to executive session. Time allowed 8:29. Consider and discuss personnel of Texas Government Code Section 551.074.
Oh, man. Okay.
It shouldn't take you.
That's. I got me a new hat.
Oh, man.
Now it's 8:48. We're reconvening in an open session. No action taken. There being no further business to come before the board. This meeting is adjourned.